They were in the Eternal Night Sovereign. The Eternal Night continent was an abandoned continent. The sky was dark and red, and there was destruction all around. It seemed like a war had just happened there. Sounds of bomb blasts and cries of help were being heard all around, and Shitang was walking with pride in between all that chaos. His cousins found a weird body of a kid somewhere in the rubble, and they called him there to check it out. The kid's body was emitting a reddish aura and had a strong presence. When she lifted the boy's shirt and saw his injuries, he was in awe. It was impossible for a boy that age to survive those injuries, but he did. The boy was still breathing and alive. Forced plunder was the term used if someone got robbed of the pristine crystal in his body. She suspected that the boy lying down there had also been force plundered. If someone got force plundered, he was stripped of his genius abilities and talents and would become a normal person just like everyone else. So the kid had lost his special abilities, and it would be very hard for him to recover from those injuries. His cultivation technique was stronger than normal people, but after the loss of his pristine crystal, it was not much different than normal people. She took the boy home to treat his injuries and consequently save his life. Soon the boy gained some consciousness, but could not figure out where he was. He was half asleep and dreamed of him being in a vast body of water with a bright blue sky above him. He thought he was dead and holding his mother's hand in his dream. His mother had come there to pick him up and also gave him a piece of bread to feed him. His eyes became wet from the sorrow he was feeling in that dream, but suddenly she woke him up by shouting at him. The boy was actually holding Shi's hand and dreaming of him as his mother. When Shi's cousins found out that the boy thought of him as his mother, they started to laugh and make fun of Shitang. They mocked Shi for a while, and then told the kid that they had found him in all that chaos. When they asked the kid for his name, he did not answer. Suddenly, the kid picked up a pen from the table near him and held it as a weapon against the guys. He thought he was in danger, and he had to save himself somehow. Shitang saw that and quickly told the kid that the pen was not a weapon. He told him that they were not his enemies, and they had saved his life from the destruction that had happened earlier. The kid seemed to not know anything about the pen. He thought it was a weapon and used it like a weapon against Shi. She explained to him that it was a tool like the boy's goggles, and then gave him an apple to eat. Since the boy was very hungry, he snatched the apple and quickly took his first bite. His eyes became shiny and his mouth started drooling when he tried the apple. After finishing the whole apple within seconds, the boy gave Shi his pen back as a thank you. Then he asked Shi about the place where they were and wanted to know who Shi was. Shitang was a great person who used to save people from the Eternal Night Sovereign and take them away from it. Eternal Night Continent was an abandoned place, and so he saved people from there and took them to the Netherworld training camp. Shi was particularly happy when he saw this boy wake up and come back to life. He wanted to save this boy and give him a better life. The boy then finally told his name to everyone. He did not know his surname, but his name was Qianye. Shi was so happy at that moment that he got up from his chair and offered the boy to become his son if he graduated from the Netherworld training camp. Netherworld training camp was a place that could train Qianye's body and mind both. He could gain the knowledge he seeked and become a better person. This way, Shi would make him his son and give him a surname.
Do you want to know the name of this manga, along with all the manga names of the recaps we did in our channel? How about also the chapter numbers our recaps end? You can simply ask the names in our Discord community for free or become a donor to get them all in one place. You can either be a donor in Patreon or be a member in our YouTube channel. Just scan this QR code or go to the link in the description to become a donor. Moreover, becoming a donor automatically makes you a VIP member of our Discord server with over tens of thousands of members.
Qianye agreed to his offer. Shi instantly told everyone else to call off the search mission. He picked up Qianye and was ready to leave the Eternal Night continent. There was so little light outside because on that continent, there were only a few short hours of daylight. A huge spaceship came outside and everyone boarded the ship. Within minutes, they left the continent and took Qianye with them. Qianye was at the Netherworld training camp after that. A whole month passed, and one fine sunny day, he was in a huge white Jeep with a punk driver named Shi Yan. Yan was driving very recklessly, and they even jumped off a huge cliff in their Jeep. Qianye was flying around in the Jeep, and as soon as they touched the ground, a strong guy was standing in front of them. The guy was Long Hai, who had an eye patch on his face and was quite a tough guy. Yan quickly turned the car sideways and dodged Hai, and then parked the car. He got out of the car and met with Hai, but he was 3 minutes late. Shi Yan was the Lin family's watchdog. He was the commander's personal attendant, and he felt pride in saying that. Hai and Yan seemed like they were old friends, because Hai mocked Yan for being late, and that he had lost his skills because he was a watchdog. However, Yan did not care, and they both laughed it out. Meanwhile, Qianye got out of the Jeep and was about to puke because of Yan's reckless driving. He tried his best not to vomit, as he did not want the delicious food getting out of his body. Then Yan handed over Qianye to Hai. Long Hai was an instructor at the Netherworld training camp, and he was tasked with training the boy. Yan was very happy to finally know that Qianye was in good hands, but he advised him to follow whatever command instructor Long gave him. He really wanted to see the kid shine in the future. He patted the kid on the head and then handed him over to Hai. While he was approaching Hai, Qianye suddenly felt weird memories in his head. He did not know what they were, and they went away pretty quickly. When he regained consciousness, he bid farewell to Yan. Soon, Instructor Long and Qianye were gone and lost in the depths of the forest. Netherworld training camp was hidden in a huge valley under the clouds. It seemed like the valley was a giant beast, and the Netherworld training camp was the mouth of the beast. It was all under a heavy blanket of clouds. Hai welcomed Qianye by calling the camp Hell, and they entered the camp after that. That day, Netherworld camp had a whole new batch of students at Warehouse A. Qianye was also one of those students, and everyone was lined up in front of Mr. Long. He marched in front of the students like a military commander, and then shouted at them with the ground rules of the camp. The first and the second rule were the same. It was to obey the seniors. The third rule was absolute submission in front of the commander and instructor. The students were only given commands once, and they had to obey and follow the orders. They had no second chance to hear the commands again. Instructor Long gave his first command to the new students after listing the rules. The first command was to stand against the wall and not move until there was a new command. All the students quickly started running to find a spot against the wall to stand. They were not even allowed to talk to each other. In a moment, all students were lined against the walls, and there was complete silence in the whole warehouse. The students were terrified of the instructor. However, after that command, Hai left the warehouse and the doors were closed after him. The students were confused by that because they were waiting for his next command. All the students were lined up against the walls for a long time, and each one of them was confused by what just happened. Some were worried, some were uneasy, and some were enjoying the environment. Some of them got bored and started doing random stuff to entertain themselves. The people near Qianye started talking to each other, and the boy next to him was quite bored, so he also tried to start a conversation with him. The boy's name was Liu Kai, and his family was conducting business in Jianzhong province. His father had advised him that two people were more likely to succeed than one. So Kai wanted to be friends with Qianye and get to know him more. However, Qianye had only one thing stuck in his mind. He knew that Yan had advised him to obey Instructor Long, and the instructor told them not to talk. After trying for several times, Kai could not make Qianye talk. He thought he was a mute and gave up. Right then, the doors opened and Instructor Long came in with a group of boys who seemed like they were the senior students of Netherworld camp. When he saw most of the kids running around and talking with each other, he was disappointed and angry. He ordered the seniors to pick up all the kids that disobeyed his orders and take them out of the warehouse for punishment. Some kids resisted because their fathers were high-ranked and notable personalities, but the rules at Netherworld camp were very strict. Even the son of the Imperial Marshal would be given the same treatment as everyone else at the camp. In the blink of an eye, 1/3 of the kids at the warehouse were taken away because they had broken the rules and not obeyed the instructor. Qianye and Kai were still there because they hadn't caused any trouble. But when the instructor angrily announced that the training had begun and everyone was required to go to the playground to assemble, Kai got so frightened that he fell down. So he was also taken away for punishment because he was no longer standing against the wall. Soon, all the students that were left in the warehouse reported at the playground, and their rigorous training started. There were several types of training, and every one of them was hard and no mercy was shown. Specific times were set for each type of training. Swimming, running, and climbing all had their specific time periods. Even meals and sleep times were specified for the students. In the time span of 3 months, more than half of the students in the class had been eliminated because they could not keep up and were not fit for the camp. That was just the start of the training, and even then they were unable to hold up. This showed that training was going to get a lot worse soon. The Netherworld training camp selected students from all over the country. Students from noble families who had been literate since the beginning were also present, and children from common families who could not afford studying were also present at the camp. At Qianye's first culture class, he was the first one to arrive in the classroom. He was very eager to study and got extremely excited when he saw his book regarding the history of the empire. After some time, all the students arrived and the teacher also arrived. Her name was Zhang Jing, and she was their culture class's teacher. Miss Jing explained to the students the nature of their world. There existed two forces. The first one was the dawn force, which was biased towards the light, and the second one was the dark force, which was biased towards the dark. Since all living creatures depended on force to survive, they were also divided into two camps. The first one was the dawn camp, and the second one was the eternal night camp. The human race was on the dawn side, and on the dark side, there were vampires, werewolves, demons, and human-faced Nerubians. The dark side was once very powerful, and they enslaved mankind for thousands of years. Although there was a twist in the human race, there existed several degrees of bias towards a side, and humans varied a lot. Most of the human race was biased towards the dawn, but some people wholly devoted themselves to the dark side, even after awakening the dawn force through cultivation. In between the two forces, there existed a middle force, called the original force. The original force was the purest force, and there was no race that could actually relate to that force. Only very few selected people could feel the original force. The continents were also grouped according to their force attributes. Some were located on the side of the dawn, and they received more sunlight than the ones which were located on the side of eternal night. The eternal night continent, from which Tianye was found, was the origin of all races, and had the longest night of all the continents. It was also called the abandoned land, and upon hearing that from the teacher, Tianye was in a shock and started trembling. He suddenly started having memories of his life at the Eternal Night continent. Life was hard back when he was there, but it was still full of joy. They had to work hard to get their day's food, but it would still feel rewarding and peaceful. He started having memories of the death of his mother. On that day, Tianye cried his eyes out. He saw his mother's grave in those memories and started trembling. Soon the lecture ended, and for the students to attend the next lecture of Miss Jing, they had to pass a test. Everyone thought of it as a piece of cake and left the class, but Tianye was still sitting there frozen in his memories. His eyes were full of tears. After a while of reflecting on the past, he left the classroom in tears. After that day, Tianye started studying a lot. He used to study late at nights while eating meals, in breaks in between lectures, and even while running and working out. He was preparing for the exam, which would happen a month later. Finally, the day came, and after giving the exam, he felt a sigh of relief. He had worked so hard for that exam and was looking forward to the results. The next day, Miss Jing announced the results of all the students except the top 5 ones. Tianye was eager to know about the top 5 people because he was sure he would get a spot there. As soon as Miss Jing announced Tianye's name on the 5th place, his eyes filled with excitement and happiness. He quickly approached the teacher and took his test from her. Upon seeing that he had gotten an A+ grade, he got tears in his eyes. Instructor Long was also standing silently outside the door of the classroom, and he let out a sigh of relief when he got to know that Tianye had passed the test with an outstanding grade. After announcing the top 5 students, some students' names were still not announced. Those were the students who had failed the test, and Miss Jing told them to leave the class as a punishment. They were taken out of the classroom by the senior students standing outside with Instructor Long. Once the class was empty of the students who had failed, it was time to start the lecture. The lecture that day was about the Dawn War. It had happened around 1200 years ago at the place where humankind originated, the Eternal Night continent. It was a long war which lasted for more than 100 years, and humankind used all its might. Steam engines, roaring guns, giant machinery, and the Dark Force was involved in this war. It was a royal rumble between all these entities. The humans suffered severe losses, and only 1/10 of the human population was left after the war. However, even after a big loss, the human race won the war and finally freed themselves from slavery under the Dark Force. They expelled the people of the Dark Force, and this way the Eternal Night and the Dawn camps were formed. After the war, the Eternal Night continent was left in chaos. It was like a huge garbage dump and was again invaded by the Dark Tribe for revenge. Tianye had not seen the Dark Tribe himself, but he had heard it from the adults back at the Eternal Night continent. Upon hearing all that again from Miss Jing, he started trembling from fear. The Eternal Night continent was used as a burial ground for retired airships and other material from the upper continents. There were also dark creatures there which made life hard for the minimal amount of people still remaining there. Tianye remembered that to get food on that continent, they had to go on a complete mission. Tianye once spotted a bread in the ruins of the destroyed buildings, and before getting the bread, he had to stay in cover until the dark creatures had gone. Then he ran in full speed and snatched the bread before getting back to cover. Tianye had not eaten in 3 days, and was about to take his first bite but suddenly felt a strange presence. He stopped and looked behind himself to see a weak and skinny little girl. She was an abandoned child looking for food in all the chaos. Since food was the only hope of survival on that continent, Tianye decided to help that little girl. He saw the fear and helplessness in her eyes. He split the bread in half and offered it to the little girl because finding food there was like mining for gold. It was a chance of luck to find something to eat. The Eternal Night continent lacked shelter, food, and safety. All the people were homeless because all the buildings were destroyed and there was no place to live at. It was very hard for them to survive in those harsh conditions. So naturally, when Tianye tried to give the little girl the piece of bread, she thought he was there to hurt her. He bended over to hand the piece to her, and she instantly snatched the bread from his hand and then punched him in the face lightly and ran away in full speed. She was running away from Tianye, but after a few seconds, she collided with something and fell down. When she looked up, there was a group of boys standing in front of her. They had smelled food from far away and came to hunt for the food. One of the boys went close to her and tried to hold her head and take the bread from her. When Qianye saw that, he came running and threw a strong punch towards the boy's head, but the boy dodged it. Then Qianye stood in front of the little girl to protect her, and the girl was surprised when she found out that he was not an enemy, but an ally. The group of boys told Qianye that an airship had brought a lot of food that day near that place. They were there to find the food, and were not ready to let Qianye take even a small piece from the food. Qianye agreed to give the boys his piece of the bread. When they found out that the bread looked like it was split in half, they became angry and demanded the other piece as well. He begged them to only take that because he had no more, but they did not agree. They knew the little girl had the other piece, so one of the boys took Qianye's bread and instructed the others to take the little girl with them. As for Qianye, they picked him up and punished him with a heavy beating. His eyes were full of tears, and it was very painful for him to take the beating. After the beating was over, they even locked one of his legs with the ground using an iron chain. That way, he was unable to move from that spot, and he fell down there with fatigue. Soon the boys left the place by explaining that survival on the Eternal Night Continent was a competition. The more people alive, the harder it was for everyone to survive. So they decided to beat Qianye and leave him stranded in the wild, so that the Dark Tribe would deal with him when they raided the area. They even took the little girl with them by dragging her by her hair through the destruction. Eventually, some huge ant-like creatures from the Dark Tribe gathered around Qianye and were about to make him their meal. When the boys saw that, they gave the little girl the key for the lock on Qianye's leg and told her to free him. But she knew she couldn't do that because there were scary creatures all around him, and so she left him there, even though she had the key. This was all a memory in Qianye's head in Miss Jing's class. In a moment, the bell rang and he suddenly woke up from his long and sorrowful dream. He was shaking and trembling right then, but Miss Jing announced that Instructor Long had a gift for all of the students present there in the next class. Right when everyone heard that, they were relieved that the class was finally over, and they rushed out the door like a herd of sheep. The days kept passing, and the people in the classes seemed to be decreasing day by day. Every day was the same, but the number of students was lesser than the previous day. Qianye felt that his body had grown a lot due to the rigorous training they all went through. He had grown by more than 10 centimeters because of the food they were provided at the camp. It contained minimal drugs that helped unlock the human body's potential faster than normal. On a sunny morning when all the students were doing their routine running, a loud bang was heard in the ground outside, and suddenly there was dust everywhere. Every single student was confused. Some thought it was an attack while others thought it was a drill, but soon the smoke cleared out and everybody found out what it actually was. Through the smoke, they saw Instructor Long standing firmly. He announced that the first stage of training was finally over, and they had removed all the weak students. Only the toughest ones were left. Then, he let everyone know that some serious training was going to start after that day. It was time for the students to experience the real training, which only a few passed. The students froze when they found out that there was going to be even tougher training. For the next 2 years, the students were directed to undergo training which would focus on their force. They would also be taught effective fighting skills against enemies. That way, they would have a chance to fight the Dark Tribe after that. But victory was not guaranteed. They could also face losses in the fights, and the students' lives would always be on the line. Instructor Long especially told them that only a quarter of the students would complete the next phase of training and be able to leave the camp. This meant that out of 30, only around 8 people would pass out from the camp having accomplished full training. In the next class of Miss Jing, everybody had a book named Fighting Tactics in their hands. This was the gift given to them by Instructor Long. It was a training scroll for effective fighting skills. However, Miss Jing told them that it was actually designed for the bait. She also told them that bait was not a negative term at the camp. Only the students who survived the rigorous training and passed out from the camp got the title of bait. Then she gave all the students a deadline for an assignment. They were all required to be trained for a complete force tide within 3 months. As an assignment, they were required to ignite the first force point within a year. If they did not accomplish that goal, they would suffer serious punishment. The next day, all the students were taken to the Fighting Tactics training room. It was a huge warehouse with multiple small rooms in it. All the students were wearing special robes. Each student was required to enter a separate room and carry out a special procedure on their body. Qianye chose a room and entered it before closing the door behind him. Then he got undressed and picked up a special stick from one of the cabinets located in the room. It was the red blood stick. He threw the stick into the furnace which was burning in the center of the room. Some time passed, and a special aroma started lingering around the room. That was actually the force resonance, and Qianye was there to cultivate his force using the red blood technique. He soon felt like he was roaming around in a blank space. That was because his first force node was ignited. Once that was done, the inner force multiplied itself, and he felt immense power run through his body. His force node was punched again and again to increase his inner force. His inner force became so strong and reached a point where he felt a very strong pain at the center of his body. He had been training his body for more than a year just for this moment. If he had not trained for it, the force would instantly wreck his body. Normal people could not handle the sheer amount of force produced during red blood technique. After cultivating for a while, he heard a knock on the door, which meant that the time was over and they all were instructed to stop. Then they were called outside to meet Instructor Long. He explained to them the power of red blood because they had tried it themselves and experienced what normal people couldn't. A little red blood stick was worth 12 lives. After some explanation, Instructor Long told them about the upcoming exams. Every subject would be scored according to their performance. If they lacked it, they would consequently get a lower grade. The reward for the top 10 students was that they would get double red blood the next time they would cultivate. As for the students not in the top 10, they would get a punishment. Their punishment was a severe one because they would get no red blood for their next cultivation session. This was a serious punishment because cultivation without red blood technique was extremely hard for the body and they would not be able to sustain it. Qianye knew Instructor Long's intentions going forward. He wanted to eliminate the weak students and only keep the top ones. Once the weak students got no red blood, their cultivation would get weaker and weaker, and the difference between them and the top ones would widen. This way, the weak students would be eliminated eventually. So, Qianye set his goal to be in the top 50 students at the whole camp. However, when result day finally came, he was disappointed by his performance. Qianye was ranked number 75 with a score of 779 out of 1,000. He was not happy at all with his performance in the exams. After the result day, he started training more harshly. He would run even when out of breath and would only stop when he suffered some pain in his lungs and heart. He trained like that for a whole week. After a week, the rankings changed, and Qianye had improved a bit. He was on number 67 that week, but he was still not satisfied. However, he was confused by one thing. The people who were above him in rankings last time had fallen very low that week. They had even fallen below the 90 ranks. This meant that training was actually hard, and Qianye was still improving. Then another week passed, and it was the day to update the rankings. Qianye was excited and afraid at the same time to see his rank. That time, Qianye ranked at 49. He was surprised by finding out that he had improved that much while the others had fallen down. The top students of the previous weeks had dropped below 80 that week. He wanted to know what was actually happening because falling down by more than 50 ranks was not possible for the top students in 1 week only. One day, Qianye decided to hide in the bushes and stalk a boy whose ranking was 42 that week. He observed him silently while the boy went towards a corner of the building. At the corner of the building, there was a small alley between that building and the next building. There stood a group of boys waiting for him. The boy was then brutally beaten up, and he fell to the ground unconscious. He was badly injured, and he could not pass the next physical test, which meant that every student behind him would move up by 1 rank. Qianye saw everything, and even Instructor Long saw how the group of boys beat him up, but he did not do anything, and just observed silently. It was the unwritten rule of Netherworld camp that the weak would get destroyed by the strong. It was like a competition for survival. Qianye got up from the bushes to go away from that place, but the boys saw him, and so everyone approached him after beating up the other boy. Once they were gathered around him, they asked for his name with a smirk on their faces. Then one of the boys, who looked like the group leader, approached Qianye and said some harsh things to him. He warned him not to study and get his grades higher again. The boy confronted him to get his grades down and not waste any red blood. This way, the group of boys could have a chance of getting the red blood sticks. Even after saying some curse words and heavily threatening Qianye, the boys were not satisfied. They wanted to leave a long-lasting impression on Qianye, so they decided something tougher. The group leader approached Qianye and punched him in the stomach by telling him that if he did not obey them, they would beat him like that every day. They kept kicking and punching him in the face for quite a while until he fell to the ground on his knees. The group leader felt a sense of satisfaction after doing that job, as he thought Qianye would agree to his threat and let his grades fall down to make space for them all. Meanwhile, Instructor Long was in the classroom inside, and he suddenly heard a noise and realized something was wrong. He instantly figured out it was some trouble with Qianye. When he went outside to check, his guess was true, and he found 4 boys beating him up. Qianye was in a really bad condition lying down on the ground. His knees and arms were filled with bruises, and his face was even worse. He had a little bit of blood dripping down his face and a ton of bruises on it. Right when Instructor Long saw all that, he became furious. He shouted at the boys that every one of them would be punished for having private fights, and those specific boys would face a higher penalty for beating up Qianye because of his grades. When the boys saw and heard all that, they became extremely terrified. They were worried about the consequences and what was going to happen next because Instructor Long was a very strict commander. 1 week passed, and it was finally the result day. The ranks were updated, and Qianye was excited to check them out. However, when he found out that he was not in the top 50 anymore, he became disappointed in himself. He was in a bad mood walking through the corridor, but suddenly a familiar face came to him and offered him something. It was Song Zining, the 4-time first-ranked student in the exams. He came to Qianye for a surprising reason. He offered him one of his 4 red blood sticks because he knew he would not use that many by himself. So he tried to help a fellow student by giving him his red blood stick, and he chose the right person for the thing. Qianye was a sincere and hard-working student and deserved the red blood stick. After accepting the red blood stick from Zining, Qianye was a bit hesitant to speak to him because he thought he had done something illegal. He himself was not entitled to a red blood stick, but took it from a person who was. So there was a possibility that he could get punished for this. However, he still accepted it and moved on. The next day, Zining again gave him his red blood stick and he accepted it. Similarly, 2 more days passed, and each day Zining would give Qianye his red blood stick at a secret place on the campus. On the 5th day, when Zining offered him the red blood stick, Qianye did not accept it. Zining was confused, but then Qianye told him that he had reached top 50 rankings again and did not need his red blood sticks anymore. Qianye thanked him and left the secret meeting place they both had selected for their dealings. A lot of time passed after that. After 11 months on a pleasant sunny day, Qianye was cultivating in the fighting tactics training room. He suddenly felt a surge of force through his body. It was the immense force of the final stage of the tidal force. It seemed like he was getting sucked into a big whirlwind of water. It was called a force siphon, and it cleanly absorbed the whole of Qianye's body. In a few moments, his body came back to life, and he felt a lot of exhaustion. He was on his knees on the ground, panting loudly. On that day, Qianye's first force node had finally been activated. He was no longer considered a civilian member after that, and was in the first-level line of soldiers. After that day, a whole month passed, and Qianye was constantly warming up his body for a bigger task. He wanted to attack his second force node after he successfully ignited the first one. When one day he felt that it was time to try and ignite his second force node, he went into the fighting tactics training room. He sat down and started his cultivation technique with full concentration. However, as soon as he started cultivating, he quickly felt huge amounts of power surges through his body. Suddenly, his core became so concentrated with power that he could not hold it anymore, and vomited blood before falling down. Qianye lost consciousness there and kept lying on the floor. Luckily, someone outside heard the noise and came to check up on him. They found him lying down on the floor unconscious, so they called the camp doctor quickly. Qianye was taken to the Netherworld training camp for biological anatomy class. There, instructor Long, Miss Jing, and biology teacher Shen Tu were monitoring his body. The 3 of them were very worried, but suddenly the door opened and someone arrived to check up on Qianye. It was the Netherworld training camp director of teaching and learning. All 3 of them stood straight in respect of the director. He went straight to Qianye's bed and touched his core to find out what had happened. The director instantly figured out the problem. It was a force plunder which had happened, and that is why Qianye lost his consciousness very quickly. The director knew that Lin Shuai had sent Qianye to the training camp, but he did not know the reason. Even instructor Long did not know why the kid was sent there. If Shuai sent the kid for a personal benefit, he would have made sure to keep him alive, but he did not. He did not even instruct the director or Long to keep the kid alive or safe. All the upper ones knew that Qianye was sent by Lin Shuai, and that he was an orphan, but did not know anything more. To avoid any trouble, the director decided to not tell anyone else about the force plunder, including the chief. He instructed Miss Zhang Jing to take care of Qianye and not let the kid die. After some time, Qianye's eyes opened and he woke up. He was irritated by the strong light fixed upon him, so he got up from the bed. Just then, Miss Jing gave him a piece of paper. It was fighting tactics, but with the impacting chest node part modified. She instructed him to follow the new chest node cultivation process until he was able to ignite his chest node again. However, he was strictly forbidden from taking the modified fighting tactics paper outside the biology room. It was a top-secret cultivation technique modification, and the higher-ups could not afford to have it leaked. When he read that, Qianye was amazed by the modified cultivation technique. He kept reading and memorizing it for half an hour, and then he tore the paper into pieces. He had memorized the technique and destroyed the paper so that no one else could find out about it, and the technique could remain secret. Then he left the biology room after wearing his suit back. Qianye was strolling in the wilderness outside the biology room alone. While walking, he found Zining standing beneath a tree gazing at something in the sky. So he approached him, and they both started walking together in the wild and chatting. When Qianye told him that his instructor was Miss Jing, and she had made some adjustments to fix his cultivation technique after the force plunder incident, he became relieved. Zining told Qianye that she was one of the best instructors on the campus, and she would definitely help him reach his highest potential if she was training him. Then, Zining quickly thought of something, and then weirdly started measuring Qianye's height with his eyes. Then he started smiling deviously and looked happy for him. Qianye asked him what that was about, but he did not tell him even when insisted. Zining left the place by waving at him. Qianye became a bit concerned after that encounter. He thought Zining was worried about him for some unknown reason, that's why he measured him and smirked at him. The thing that most bothered Qianye was that Zining did not even tell him what that was about. He kept it as a secret from Qianye, which made Qianye even more curious and worried. A few days later, Qianye was again found in the Netherworld training camp room. He was there to start his cultivation again, but differently that time. He wanted to use the teaching tactics Miss Jing had given him. The modified tactics were different from the previous ones he was used to. He started cultivating in hopes of igniting his chest node again. In moments, he started feeling the huge amounts of power he felt last time. His core started burning again, and he felt cracks through his bones. The surges of power through his body were so strong that he couldn't take it anymore. But he decided not to stop that time. In his mind, he forgot that the body was his own. That way, he felt less pain because of the power surges. After half an hour of non-stop cultivation, he finally stopped. Qianye's whole body was drenched in sweat, and he was panting because of exhaustion. He was gaining his force back steadily, but it was slower than the last time because his progress was paused in the middle when he got force plundered. He fell to the floor and lied down there for a while. While lying down, he touched the big scar on his belly and went into a deep thought of it. He did not know who had given that scar to him or why someone had done that. Because of the intense pain Qianye was feeling during his cultivation that day, he decided to go to Miss Jing to inquire about it. Soon, he reached Miss Jing's mansion inside the Netherworld training camp. He knocked at the door, but got startled when the speaker outside the door told him to come inside. He carefully went inside and started hearing sounds of someone singing. He found out that Miss Jing was busy taking a shower, so he decided to wait outside in the living room. After a few moments, Miss Jing came outside, changed her clothes, and then went to Qianye to hear his inquiry. Qianye told her about the immense pain he suffered because of the new cultivation technique. Due to that pain, his chest injury he received because of force plundering was also affected negatively. Miss Jing approached him and put her hands on his shoulder. She started feeling the cracks in his body due to the cultivation technique. After the examination was done, she took her hands off him and told him that his node was damaged quite seriously. She also suggested some other things, and among them, one was very important. Qianye used to force himself outside the bounds of the pain his body could take during cultivation, and that is why he suffered injuries. She advised him not to force himself anymore and only cultivate until things were under control. If they were getting out of control, he was required to stop cultivation. Qianye left her mansion soon after taking tips from her. That night he could not sleep. He was constantly thinking about his cultivation and the force required to ignite his chest node. He felt that he required 3 times more force than a normal person to activate his chest node. Qianye was not a normal cultivator. Even average cultivators could not reach level 2, so it would be even harder for Qianye. However, he was determined to leave the Netherworld training camp. As soon as he reached level 2, he could graduate from there. That night, Qianye was very motivated to keep cultivating no matter what happened, and so he decided not to stop and keep going. With these deep thoughts, Qianye soon fell asleep. After that important night, 2 whole years passed, and Qianye kept working hard. After 2 years, one day Zining found Qianye walking through the Netherworld training camp. He was very happy to see him because Qianye was always busy cultivating or doing tough training, and he did not socialize at all. Qianye's only goal was to work his hardest and get out of that place as quickly as possible. He had reached the point where he had cultivated more forces than the average person, and he was a lot more powerful and stronger than others. After a while, all the students were gathered in the battlefield maintenance class. Instructor Long was their teacher, and he was teaching them about the top 10 famous guns in the human race that day. He first showed them the Manjusaka, which was also known as Lycoris Radiate. It was the first real gun owned by the Empire. Manjusaka also had a special ability because it could not just be an ordinary gun with a beautiful name. Manjusaka's legendary finishing technique was called Lethe. It could ignite the world's primordial power with its technique. After that, Instructor Long explained to the students their task for that day. It was in-class practice day, so they were required to practice using simple tools to enhance magazines. That skill was a core practice of the subject, because with that, they could fix broken weapons right on the battlefield. It was a life-saving skill for the students. In a few moments, every student was trying to fix bullets and magazines on their desk. There was metal noise everywhere because of the bullets and magazines, and everyone was confused. Qianye and Zining were the first ones to enhance their magazines. Qianye was very happy looking at his new shiny bullet while a beautiful girl approached him from behind. When she saw Qianye's work, she was amazed. The girl instantly became a fan of his, and she wanted him to join her team. With him on her team, they would never have to worry about guns breaking or magazines being damaged on the battlefield. She appreciated his special abilities and skills and invited him to her team. Qianye was confused and wanted some time, so he told her that he would let her know after some thinking. So the both of them agreed to the deal and came to the fighting ring. They both were really good fighters, and so the match was a tough one. Everyone else was observing the both of them silently. As soon as Mimi saw an opening, she decided to strike first and jumped at Qianye with a kick. He quickly blocked it with his arm and jumped back. He was surprised at how fast the girl was, and he started sweating because of confusion. To release his fear and show Mimi his potential, Qianye instantly threw a punch towards her after her attack. However, she was pretty fast and dodged the attack very easily by crouching. After that attack, she did something out of the box. She flipped by holding onto the ground with her hands, and then jumped above Qianye to the other side. She landed a few feet behind him and was ready to attack him. But before she could make a move, Qianye saw her jump and sent a kick to his back in hopes of hitting her. However, it was easy for her to dodge that kick by crouching again. While she was crouching, she saw an opening to hit Qianye on the leg and make him fall down. She quickly took the chance and kicked him in the leg, which caused him to fall to the ground. After that attack, Mimi had won the fight because Qianye tripped and fell first. Even Zining was surprised by the outcome, and he was inspired by the girl's fighting skills. Qianye had a strong offensive and defensive fighting style because of his strong force fundamentals. This meant that his combat would be very effective in head-on fights and actual combat. But right there in front of the girl, his fighting style was not quite effective and useful. Mimi picked him up, and he requested a rematch. They both agreed, and were once again in the center of the fighting ring ready to fight. Qianye was more focused that time and wanted to go all out on her. He saw an opening and took the first attack by punching her, but she dodged it easily. Qianye saw another opening right after she dodged his first attack, but before he could make a move, he was on the floor again. Mimi was so fast that she attacked him before he could make a move, and he tripped again and lost. Mimi's fighting style was steady when defending, but she was an unpredictable fighter in attacking, and she was actually faster than Qianye. After that fight, she thanked him for the tough competition and also offered to fight again someday. Before leaving, she called him her partner, which meant that Qianye had lost the deal, and so he was her team partner from then onwards. In fact, Qianye had lost 2 matches, the first one, and the rematch. Sometime later, all the students were gathered in the wilderness in the middle of a huge ground. There were battleships flying above them, and it seemed like they were in real combat. All the students were also wearing special combat uniforms. Instructor Long had gathered them all there that day for the exam. The huge ground was the exam venue, and the students of 10 whole classes were gathered there. The battleships above them were also dropping crates of supplies on the ground. It looked like a totally real battle, but it was a test for the students. If the red line on their suits broke, it meant that they had died in combat and lost the ability to fight. This meant that they would be kicked out from there. Then Instructor Long also told them a scary thing. He said that the Dark Tribe fighters were also dropped in the battleground. If someone defeated the Dark Tribe, he would get a whistle from within the Dark Tribe fighter's body. If a student got a whistle, he would be victorious and would pass the test. All the students became afraid when they heard about the Dark Tribe fighters and started questioning each other. There was a twist in the fight. Each student had their own whistles, too. The condition for passing the exam was to collect another whistle. However, the whistle could be collected from anywhere. This meant that the score for defeating the Dark Tribe fighters was the same as defeating another student. A student could pass the exam by defeating another student and taking his whistle. Some of the students panicked when they found this out, but Zining, Qianye, and Mimi were calm and stayed careful. Soon, the battleship started dropping more crates from the air. The crates actually contained the Dark Tribe fighters inside them instead of supplies. After a while, there were Dark Tribe crates everywhere on the ground, and the battle started. One of the students started running towards the cliff and jumped off and started off the fight first. All the students came running behind him and the chaos started. Qianye and Zining jumped off the cliff together into the battlefield and started running into the forest. When Qianye approached a huge tree, he saw a shoe mark there and stopped because someone had already been there. Then he decided to follow the smokes from the crates because the Dark Tribe fighters would be there, and that would be his fastest way to win the fight and get out of there. The whistles on the Dark Tribe fighters and the students were special ones. They were made to be blown with force, and their sound could be heard several miles away. If any of the instructors heard the whistle, they were required to rush towards that student and verify his results. If the results were true, the student would be taken out of the battlefield and marked as passed. Soon the sun set, and it was nighttime. Qianye was sitting up high on a tree branch waiting for a Dark Tribe fighter. He suddenly heard some fighting going on beneath him and decided to drop down and look what was happening. He was starstruck by the fact that 2 students were fighting each other for their whistles. They wanted to collect more whistles, and so they started fighting among themselves. One of the fighters was resisting, so the other one decided to punch him so hard that he fell far away and smashed his head into a tree. This made the red string on their suit break. The red string was the life state monitoring device, and the rule was that if the red string broke, the student would be eliminated from the battle and would fail the test. When the other fighter saw that, he came and grabbed the whistle from the boy's suit and put it in his pocket. He also explained why he had done that. Since he had been waiting for the whole day to get whistles and had got none, he had to do that. While he apologized to his classmate, suddenly he felt someone coming from behind. It was Mimi, and she had come to fight them too. If she had come to that area, it meant that she had cleared her own area and was there to get some more whistles and clean that area as well. She put a knife to the boy's neck and asked him for all of his whistles. The boy had to give them to her because he was at gunpoint. He was very pissed to see that she had so much whistles already, and she also took all of his. He offered her to work together, but she declined by saying that he was not as good as Song Zining. Before she was about to leave that area, she heard a noise in the bushes. It was Chanye, and he was hiding watching all that had happened. Chanye hesitated to come out, but when Mimi threatened to eliminate whoever was hiding, he came out and showed himself. When Mimi saw him, she became very excited and happy. She started acting very kind with Chanye, and even offered him one of her own whistles. Chanye was very excited when he saw that whistle, and so he accepted it, because he was her partner already. After that, Chanye was ready to leave the battleground because he had a whistle with him. However, Mimi had a different plan. She told Chanye to work with her and not leave too soon. If they both worked together, they could get more whistles, and that way they could actually get into top 10 and win the special prize promised by Instructor Long for only the top 10. While they were chatting, they suddenly heard a noise from behind the bushes. It was one of Mimi's teammates there. He came out and stood with Mimi and whispered something into her ear. A moment after that, Chanye was suddenly attacked by something. He was lucky to dodge the attack and save his life. He backed off to see what it actually was, because the attack was so fast that he could not figure out what had attacked him. Soon Chanye figured out that it was Mimi herself who attacked him. She had wounded him badly with the surprise attack. He could not see the point of her attacking him because he thought they were teammates. However, she did not share the same view. She was desperate to pass the exam in the top 10 and wanted to get the special rewards from Instructor Long. So she thought that attacking and eliminating Chanye could be beneficial for her in the long run, as it would reduce her competition. She tried to attack him again with her knife, but he dodged the second attack very narrowly. Then she backed off and decided to throw her knife at him from long range. Chanye quickly crouched when he saw the knife coming at him, and he saved himself from that throw. He once again asked Mimi if she really wanted to do that to him. He questioned himself if they actually were partners or not. Mimi was not interested in sharing the top 10 placement with Chanye. She wanted it to be Song Zining instead of him. She would gladly work with him together to get more points, but Chanye was a nobody in her eyes. She also mocked him that he had only reached his potential because of Zining's help. Chanye was devastated by hearing all that, and he became furious. He was ready to take on her and defeat her in combat. Meanwhile, on the other side of the battlefield, there was a huge dump of bodies of team members and dark tribe fighters. It was the work of Zining and his teammate. They both defeated everyone in that area and had a lot of whistles with them, even more than Mimi. Zining's partner gave him the last whistle in the area and wondered why the instructors weren't there, or why Zining hadn't called them. He stepped away and started walking towards the other side. Right then, Zining jumped down from the tree he was on and broke his partner's life-monitoring red line. He betrayed his partner and took his whistle as well. At that point, Zining had a whole bag full of whistles. He had hundreds of whistles of both dark tribe fighters and other students. He still wasn't sure if they would be enough to get in the top 10. Back at the other side, Mimi and Chanye had started their fight. Chanye was still trying to dodge and block her attacks because he could not activate his full force because of his injuries. However, he was very strong. His combat style had totally changed as compared to last time he fought her. The last time was a friendly match, but this time he knew that it was life or death. He was desperate to pass the exam and had to fight hard to stay alive and get whistles. It was the survival of the fittest once again. Mimi was surprised by the fact that Chianye's combat was totally different. He was no longer like before and she could not easily read his moves. Then Chianye activated his fighting tactics technique by pushing his force tide to his palm. He used his knife to attack Mimi's arm and dealt a deep cut into her arm. She tried to block it off with her knife but was unable to resist that much force from him. She pushed him back with her leg to avoid any more attacks from him, and so Chianye fell back far away and hit a tree. Mimi was hurt a lot, and her hand and whole arm was bleeding because of the knife attack. She could not believe that Chianye was still alive and standing again. He was approaching her again, but she could not move. She was in so much pain from his attacks that she knew she could not fight him off anymore. Mimi begged Chianye to not come any closer and spare her life. She even started crying and admitting that it was her mistake to betray him. In a last desperate life-saving attempt, she threw her knife at him once again. As expected, Qianye dodged it and again started walking towards her. When he reached her, he took all the whistles from her suit, including her own. He also made sure to destroy her life-monitoring red line so that she would not qualify the exam. He was not going to let her get away with a betrayal, but he did not kill her and spared her life. As soon as he left that area, a loud siren was heard for a few seconds, and then an announcement was made that the exam was over. This meant that Qianye had qualified and passed the exam. On his way out of the battlefield, he also met Zining but decided to ignore him. He was in no mood to socialize at that time because of what just happened. When they got back to the campus, half of Qianye's roommates had been eliminated. He was a bit sad because he felt lonelier day by day. However, a few days later, it was finally the exam result day. He hurried to check his result but doubted that he would actually be in the top 10. When he saw the list, Zining was on rank 7 and he was on rank 10. He could not believe himself that he actually made it to the top 10. It was because of the last-moment clutch by him by getting all the whistles from Mimi. Qianye was very happy there, and after some time he met Zining outside the building. Zining hugged him and invited Qianye to celebrate with him that night. They decided to celebrate with wine and women, but on the condition that they would find an alternative to wine, because apparently students were not allowed to have wine at the camp. Qianye agreed and decided to go to a party with his friend later at night. Zining was also going to introduce him to some of his other friends who would be at the party. Soon it was dark everywhere, and Zining took Qianye to his little party in the woods. There were a few of Zining's other friends at the party as well, and most of them were girls from his class. Zining and his friends were enjoying drinking and chatting with each other. Meanwhile, Qianye was sitting at a corner alone near the fire and having trouble drinking that much. When one of Zining's friends named Haya saw that, he started to mock Qianye. He made fun of him for not being able to drink and called him a weird person. Haya then offered Qianye a challenge. Whoever got drunk first had to dance right there wearing a skirt. That was the bet Haya offered, and because of his pride and ego, Qianye had to accept the challenge and get on with it. They both started drinking and were unstoppable. Qianye was motivated to destroy Haya's pride, and Haya did not want to give up. They used up a lot of drinks, and in the end, everybody got drunk. Everybody's memory got blurred after that, and they were not able to comprehend what happened after that. However, after some time, all of the boys except Qianye found them in the middle of Netherworld camp on a stage. They were all there for punishment and were gathered by all the other students of the camp. Everybody was looking at them with disappointment, and some students were making fun of them. Zining was panting and was drenched in sweat while standing on the stage, and Miss Jing was in front of them. Apparently, she was the one who was giving them punishment. Zining focused hard to find out what actually happened, and he got some flashbacks. It seemed like after everybody got drunk last night, Qianye had beaten them up. He had a very innocent face, but was a strong person indeed. After the punishment, the next day, Qianye saw Zining in the classroom halls. He asked him why he looked like that, and what was up with his hairstyle because Zining's hair was quite smaller that day, and different from before. Zining did not want to tell him about the punishment because it would be embarrassing, so he told him that he just wanted to change his hairstyle. Zining was annoyed and irritated because he knew that Qianye did not do all that on purpose. He was drunk, so he beat everyone up and forgot about what happened. It was also rumored that Zining's force tide had cultivated to the 15th floor. This meant that it was almost the time for Song Zining to break through his second node and reach the third node. That was a special time for Zining, so he told Qianye about it. Zining's second node breakthrough day would definitely arrive earlier than Qianye's because he was a year older than him. When Qianye heard all that, he congratulated Zining because he thought of him as his true friend. Zining knew that Qianye was a harmless guy in person, and he was a true and kind friend. They both had the same goal in the end, and that was to pass the Netherworld camp final exam and come out as soldiers. After that, Zining jokingly offered Qianye to have a friendly fight, but his offer was rejected because Qianye never won from him before in a fight. A few days later, Qianye and Zining were playing a small board game in the woods inside Netherworld training camp. They both were chatting, and Zining told some very important things to Qianye that day. Some of the elite troops of the Empire were those soldiers who were under the age of 17. This meant that some students had already graduated from Netherworld training camp 9 months ago. They could only graduate if they had pushed their force tide to level 15. So the students who had already graduated were very strong and were above average fighters. Their fighting skills and combat level could not simply be measured by their force tide level, but their broad skill set could be seen by the force tide level they possessed. Although Qianye had not broken through the second node at that time, it was not a bad thing for him. That was because he was staying at Netherworld training camp until he graduated, and he could enjoy the resources provided there. He was an orphan back at his old continent, and it was really hard for him to survive each day. He had to find food for himself and fight off the dark tribe creatures. However, at Netherworld training camp, he was provided food and shelter and was in a safe environment. If he passed the final exam, he would also have a secure future in the Empire's military. But there was one problem for Qianye. For Qianye's body, 12 rounds of force tide would produce the amount of pain 19 rounds would produce for a normal person's body. Since 15 rounds were required to break through the second node, it was very difficult for him to do so. Since the Netherworld training camp system was based on nature, only the top ones would get more resources and live happily. Qianye was doing good in all the other subjects, but in actual combat his cultivation had hit a plateau and stopped progressing. So Zining advised him to keep working hard until graduation if he wanted to get more resources from Netherworld training camp. Their small board game ended soon and Qianye won. They both went to attend their next class in the building. After the class, Qianye bumped into Miss Jing outside in the halls. She gave him a small box which contained something unknown inside and told him that Song Zining had asked her to give that to him. She knew what was in the box and was surprised by the brotherhood between Qianye and Zining. She had never seen someone share that at Netherworld training camp before. When Qianye opened the box, he found out that Zining had given him 4 red blood sticks as a gift. He was very thankful for a good friend like that and accepted the sticks. After that day, 18 months passed at Netherworld training camp. A lot of new students came in and there were only a few students in the class who were from the first batch. Qianye was also one of them, and he was doing pretty well in all subjects. He was still there because cultivation required a lot of power, and everyone's potential was different. One day in the weapon maintenance class, Qianye completed the gun assembly in 1 minute and 37 seconds. It was an extremely good time record and all the other students were astonished. Instructor Long was also impressed by his skills, and if he scored above 95 in all the weapon tests, he would pass the weapon maintenance course. Later that night, Qianye went and sat alone in the woods under a tree. He remembered that the next day it was his birthday and he would turn 16 years old. It had been 9 whole years since the mysterious man rescued him from his old continent and his miserable life. He got motivated by that thought and wanted to cultivate and reach the second node right then. He was at floor 17 of Force Tide, and so it was actually possible for him to do so. Suddenly, Qianye found himself back in his memories. He was a small kid on the Eternal Night continent, roaming around in destruction and chaos. He was searching for food and found a small piece of bread. There was also a little girl near him who was hungry, so he gave it to her as well. It was the same memory he had a flashback of once before. It was the same little girl. Once again, he was surrounded by a group of boys who badly beat him up and left him stranded there with a chain on his leg. However, this time he got a glimpse of more of that scene. While the boys were still surrounding him and looking at his helpless body, a bright red light flashed from above the sky and someone came down from a ship. He killed the group of boys and saved Qianye from their wrath. Then he came to Qianye and offered to take him to another place. It was that mysterious man who brought Qianye to the Netherworld training camp, away from all the troubles of the Eternal Night continent and his miserable life there. When that man dropped Qianye off at the Netherworld camp, Qianye made a promise to him. He said that he would be a stronger man the next time he saw him, and that he would stand by his side forever. He wanted to repay the man's kindness somehow, and decided to be a strong person so that the man's efforts would not go to waste. He stretched out his arm towards him to ask for his name, but before he could recall his name, his dream ended, and he woke up. Qianye found himself in the biology room again with the biology teacher beside him. He had fallen unconscious because of the cultivation he did last night. His organs could not hold that amount of pain and he fell down. He would have died if the biology teacher, Mr. Shentu, had been a little bit late to the scene. Mr. Shentu was very pissed at Qianye when he woke up and he said very harsh things to him. But in reality, he was happy because of one thing. There was some good news. Qianye had finally broken through the second node and could graduate from there. Mr. Shentu asked him if he was going to graduate then, but Qianye had another plan. He wanted to wait for a while until his self-made weapon was ready. That was because after graduation, the students were only issued a dagger, but they were allowed to bring self-made weapons with them only. Other weapons were not allowed. So Qianye was waiting for him to complete his self-made weapon, which was a force gun. Then he would be the first person to use a force gun in the graduation exam in 30 years of Netherworld camp's history. Also, Qianye chose Heavy Bullet as his special ability after he broke through his second node. His second node was extremely powerful and even uncontrollable sometimes. On top of all that, his force reserve was 3 times more than the average students there. This meant that Qianye could kill enemies even higher than his own level. He was a really outstanding fighter, and his combat skills were very good. Since his body was recovering well and he had no side effects, Mr. Shentu let him leave the biology room because there was no more help that Qianye needed. He could recover on his own easily. The Netherworld graduation exam only had one practical question, and it was a simple one. The students were required to hunt a spar lizard alone and retain its body to pass the exam. But the condition was that they were only allowed to use the provided dagger. They were also allowed to bring self-made weapons, but not any external ones. The exam took place in a huge area called the Burning Canyon. It was finally the exam day, and all the first batch students were taken to the Burning Canyon for their graduation exam. There were about 5 students that day, and they decided to stay together and hunt together to avoid any danger. One of them had made a bow and arrow, but he also stayed with the group to be careful. When Qianye decided to go alone, they were surprised and thought that he was going to fail if he did that. However, he went out in the woods and sat on a tall tree. Since his self-made force gun had a bullet capacity of only 1, he had 1 chance only. He decided to wait there for a clear shot at a spar lizard. He did not have to wait for long. A huge spar lizard appeared in his line of sight, and he instantly activated the heavy bullet and took the shot. A loud bang was heard, and the huge spar lizard died with 1 bullet only. Qianye was really proud of the fact that he graduated in 1 shot only. Soon, Qianye left the gates of the Netherworld training camp with his graduation suit on. He met Uncle Sure Yan just outside the gate with his big old jeep again. Yan was waiting for him outside to pick him up. When he saw Qianye, he could not recognize him because he had grown up so much since the last time they both met. Qianye also showed respect to Yan because he was his senior. Then they both got in the car and left the Netherworld training camp. Qianye was eager to meet the mysterious man who helped him, Lin Shuai. Lin Shuai was Qianye's foster father since they had made a deal back then, so it was natural for Qianye to go and meet him first of all. However, Yan told him that there was a problem, and so he could not meet Shuai just then. Lin Shuai was sent to the western border of the empire to guard the border, and he was not allowed to leave his post. There had been some rebellions in 2 neighboring provinces. The rebels also used to disguise themselves as civilians in that area, so it was tricky to catch them. That is why Shuai was sent at that post to handle the issue. The rebels wanted to overthrow the empire's governance and make their own. However, it was not that easy to accomplish that task since the empire had been governing for more than 1,200 years. It consisted of 300 provinces and more than 4 continents. The empire was already busy handling the dark tribe threats, and so the rebels only created more problems for them. Shuai was a peaceful leader, so he had not initiated war on the rebels. But if the rebels did not back off soon, the next general who would be replacing Shuai would definitely start a war to get rid of the rebels. Then, Yan informed Qianye that the Imperial army was going to recruit new troops the next day. So he decided to take Qianye there too, and make him give the examination for a chance to get into the Imperial army and serve as a soldier. 2 elite corps of the Empire would be taking the examination the next day, so Qianye had to perform well on the test. If he got recruited, he would have the chance to become a top soldier in the Imperial army. After that, Yan suddenly gave Qianye a piece of paper. It was the paper Lin Shuai wrote 9 years ago for Qianye. When he opened the paper, Qianye saw the name Lin Qianye written on the paper. He could not believe that Shuai already knew 9 years ago that he would pass from Netherworld training camp and be his son. After a long chat, they finally reached Xiangyang in the Qinlu province. It was the largest military-industrial city in the province. It was the place where the Imperial army recruited its troops every year. That is why many youngsters and fresh graduates of Netherworld training camp used to go there. That year there were the Broken Wings Angel and Red Scorpion Behemoths in the soldier list, so a lot of new people from wealthy families were also there. Broken Wings Angel and Red Scorpion were top 5 in all legions of the Empire, so they were quite respected and good options for new recruits. Then they both went towards the recruiting camp of the Imperial army. Yan gave Qianye his pass for the recruitment exam and bid farewell to him. Qianye was then left alone in the Imperial army recruitment camp, and there were hundreds of unknown people surrounding him. He then went towards his provisional accommodation to check it out. When he reached his assigned room, he found out that there were a lot of people already living there. Around 7 people were living in one room excluding Qianye. He was hesitant to enter because he felt like a stranger, and the other people also did not want another person to join and make the room more clustered. However, he had to stay there as he was assigned that room, and so he went inside and sat on his bed looking at the other people. He was bored, so he just waited there and heard everyone else chat with each other. Soon they were served food from the camp recruitment agency, but it was still early for a meal. The food was not good at all according to Qianye, but he had to eat because there was no other option. Then everybody in the room went to sleep. Qianye had a hard time sleeping and suddenly he felt a strong sense of trouble. It seemed like someone was murdering people there, and so he could not sleep. He looked at the door and saw a mysterious man dressed in black standing outside the door. He could see his face through the door, but nobody else noticed him. The man had a book in his hand with a list on which there was Qianye's name as well. It was the list of 14 recruits from the Netherworld training camp. Qianye could not sleep all night, and finally it was morning. It was the day for the shooting exam. Everybody was gathered down at the shooting range. The guns provided were modified to low cost but had multiple shots of force gun so that the students could shoot all the targets. Qianye was standing there examining his gun when another guy beside him started to mock him because he thought he did not know anything about guns. Qianye told him to not talk bad with him because he was from a wealthy family, as he was the son of Lin Shuai. However, the other guy did not care at all because he knew that the tests were fair and the wealthy families had no advantage over the others. The both of them started to get pissed at each other and wanted to show off their skills. So the other guy presented a bet. They bet on the exam's result. If Qianye won the bet, he would get the other guy's necklace. The necklace was the Wei family's token of faith. The other guy was actually from the Wei family, and with that necklace, he could get anything he wanted if it was within his reach. If Qianye got that necklace, he could also make a request to the Wei family for anything he wished for. When everybody else found out that the arrogant boy was from the Wei family, they became shocked. Qianye looked at him with a smirk on his face and decided to accept the bet. They both had a deal and were ready to start. The recruitment camp staff started the exam off by a loud whistle. The target had 10 rings on it with different points. The bullseye was only the size of a nail, and it was hard to hit it from 100 meters away. After a while, only Qianye and the other boy were left in the group. The highest score then was 50 rings only. It was the boy's turn and he badly wanted to hit the bullseye, so he aimed and took the shot but got unlucky and hit the 70-ring score. It was the best one, but he was not satisfied with it, and he knew he could have done better. After his shot, Qianye was ready for his turn. He aimed and shot towards the board. It felt like he would hit 50 ring at most, and so the other boy was ready to show off his victory. But when the bullet hit the board with a loud boom, the bullseye had been hit. Everybody, including the boy, was in shock of what just happened, and they could not believe their eyes. After that, it was time for the moving target exam. In that exam, Qianye had the same results. He got full ring scores in the 3 of the moving targets he hit. Then it was time for the moving shooting practical exam. In that one as well, Qianye got the full ring scores. He was acing every test that was thrown at him. He even hit bullseye with the special gun that was made for those exams. Everyone else could not hit and make a small hole in the board using that gun. They would just break the whole board because of the gun's special bullets. When the boy saw Qianye's bullseye shots, he was starstruck. He could not believe what he was seeing. Qianye was way higher than the boy in force level, and so he won the shooting exam with ease. His rigorous training at the Netherworld camp finally came to use. 9 whole years of training were showing off that day. The boy gave Qianye his necklace as they had made a deal, and before leaving he also told him some facts about him. The boy's name was Wei Potian, and he was from the Wei family in the Far East. Potian was a determined boy, and his goal was to shatter the sky with one punch in the future. He also wanted to join the Imperial army and serve the Empire with his strength. He then told Qianye that he could request anything from the Wei family in the future from the necklace he gave him. Then the both of them walked towards the next exam venue. While in line, Qianye asked him why he picked a fight with him. He was surprised by the answer he got from Potian. Potian mocked Qianye not because of his identity, but because of his face. Qianye was a handsome boy, and because of that, Potian was bothered. He thought that Qianye was even prettier than his lady, and so he wanted to punch him in the face and destroy his beauty. They got bored waiting in line, so Potian offered Qianye another deal. He wanted to bet on the next exam as well. If Potian won, he would get his necklace back, and if Qianye won, he would get Potian's bracelet that time. Qianye questioned Potian's authority and his family because of his irrational behavior, but then agreed to the bet. The next test was the combat exam. The rules were simple that time. There were one-on-one battles between the contestants, and anyone could challenge any person for a battle. However, the contestants were not allowed to reject any person's challenge. Whoever won 5 battles would pass the exam regardless of their losses. The ranks at the end would be determined by winning percentage, so it was necessary for them to win as much as possible. As agreed before, Qianye picked Potian as his opponent, and they both were ready to fight in the ring. Potian was filled with his pride and ego, and was determined to win that fight. He was ready to show Qianye the secret of martial arts and beat him badly. He initiated his secret technique of 1,000 mountains with a red surge of energy all around him. Qianye was surprised when he saw that amount of power coming out from Potian's body. He recalled that Instructor Long had told him about the secret martial arts technique passed on in some families, but it was his first time actually seeing it in person. Potian decided to not attack first because he thought that Qianye would not be able to take his attack. He wanted to see his potential as well, so he offered Qianye to attack first. But when Qianye attacked with his strong kick filled with energy, Potian was amazed. He could not block it off and drifted far away because of the immense power of the kick. Then Qianye punched him in the face with his super powerful punch. Potian was very confused because Qianye's combat level was like that of a 3rd-level soldier. He could not understand why Qianye was giving that test. On the other hand, it was just another day for Qianye. He used to take those fights as jokes back at Netherworld camp. Qianye easily won that fight and it surprised everybody there. They could not believe that he actually beat a member of the Wei family. So to satisfy their pride and egos, other contestants also challenged Qianye. Some very fast and powerful people came in hopes of defeating him, but no one could do that. He easily defeated every contestant that challenged him, and they all were lying down on the ground gasping for dear life. After beating numerous opponents, no one else dared to fight Qianye. However, one odd guy from the crowd stepped up and challenged him. It was the successor of the Secret Fist. He was the heir of Golden Heavy Meteor, and was a really strong person. Everybody was stoked to see that match because they thought it would be a tough competition. But all their hopes died when Qianye knocked out that so-called strong guy with a single punch. The crowd could not see how Qianye was doing all that with just battlefield combat techniques. His martial art was very simple and contained the fundamental skills only. But his defining point was that every shot he took at his opponent was accurate and strong. He did not miss any chances and openings created by his opponent. That was the secret to his one-punch victories. After all those fights, Qianye was still hungry for more, but he got sent out from the fighting ring because he had already won 5 matches. He had passed the combat exam without even knowing, and it felt like he did it without trying. Back at Netherworld training camp, the fights were very different. They were more engaging and challenging for Qianye. At the Imperial Army recruitment test, he felt no challenge at all. All the one-on-one fights were like a child's play for him. Then he wanted to move on to the next exam because he was the first one to pass the exam and was bored alone. But the instructors strictly told him not to go anywhere else, and so he had to wait in the rest area. Some time passed and Wei Poshan came to meet him at the rest area. He started chatting about the enormous power of the Wei family and the 1,000 mountain secrets, but Qianye had only one thing stuck in his mind. He stretched out his hand and asked Poshan for the bracelet. Since they both had a bet and Qianye had won it, Poshan had to give him his bracelet. He could not even challenge Qianye for a rematch that time because he knew he would lose again and would not be able to get his precious things back. Qianye jokingly asked for a rematch in return for his belt that time, but that made Poshan even more pissed and disappointed at himself. Soon the combat exam ended and then everyone was taken to the next and final exam. The purpose of the final exam was to test the contestant's force and its special abilities. However, if someone practiced fighting tactics, he was not required to test his special abilities and only required to show the amount of force tide levels achieved. So Qianye was also one of the few students who were not required to test their special abilities. All the students were given separate chambers to cultivate their force, and they were monitored live and also recorded for inspection later on. The recruitment standard for the Imperial local army was 7 rounds. For the regular army was 10 rounds. For ordinary special forces was 15 rounds. While for the top elite legions it was 20 rounds. Qianye had easily reached 10 force tide rounds. He was hungry for more because he wanted to achieve something extraordinary and get a ticket to the top elite legions. The 9 years of tough training he did at the Netherworld training camp and the hours he spent cultivating were to be used then. He did not want to disappoint Instructor Long and all of the other teachers, so he tried hard and got to 18 rounds with heavy resistance from his body. He knew he had less time left and there were 2 more levels to achieve. Qianye's whole body started sweating and his heart was in immense pain, but he managed to reach level 19. But then he figured out that if he did not stop cultivation right then, his heart would stop functioning and cease. His body was under unimaginable amounts of pain and concentrated energy. The danger of shattering his heart was still not enough to stop him from continuing the cultivation technique. He knew that was the only way he could get into a respected and honorable position in the Imperial Army. The bell was about to ring and he had a very limited amount of time to make one last move and try to reach level 20. Qianye decided to direct the force tides to the center of his core so he could digest the shockwave produced by the amount of concentrated power surging through his body. Although that method had a risk of making him go unconscious, he still took the risk and went for it. In the blink of an eye, the bell rang, and the instructor outside Qianye's chamber opened the door to check up on him. He found him lying down on the floor with some blood dripping down from his body. But when the instructor saw the level counter, he was shocked. Qianye had reached level 20 of Force Tide and passed the test with great honor. The instructor was worried if Qianye could still get up in breath, but Qianye told him that he was fine and would be out in a minute. Meanwhile, outside the exam venue, Yan was looking at the bright sky, wondering if Qianye would pass the tests or not. On the other hand, the Imperial Army Selection Board was discussing the contestants that were there that year. They were impressed by the performance of the new recruits and were making a selection criterion in the strategy meeting room. Every board member was going through the files of all the contestants and selecting the ones they thought were good enough for the Imperial Army's different ranks. When everybody saw Qianye's file, they got really impressed by his performance and that a fighting tactics user had reached level 20 of Force Tide. But when the Broken Wings Angel Vice Captain Bai Longjia pondered upon his file, he was not quite impressed. He was of the view that Qianye had to put his life on risk just to reach level 20 of Force Tide, and that was not an impressive thing. Qianye barely passed the exam to be worthy of joining the Broken Wings Angel. He strictly advised against selecting him straight away. Then the colonel of the Red Scorpion Army, Wei Lishi, asked for Qianye's file. When he saw the rough and tough build and performance of Qianye, he instantly became interested in him and called dibs. Wei Lishi told everyone else that he would be taking Qianye into the Red Scorpion Army as a soldier. When the Broken Angel Wings vice captain heard that, he started to mock Wei Lishi. He stated that the Red Scorpion had ranked third in 3 military competitions in a row. His aim was to degrade the Red Scorpions for selecting a person like Qianye for their army. However, Lishi was not intimidated by Longjia's bad-mouthing, and he had another view. He wanted to select a person who would be willing to put their life on the line for the Empire, and Qianye was fit for that role. Longjia was a leader who mainly focused on raw facts and figures, whereas Lishi looked at the depths of a person's personality. Their chatting continued for a while, and because of Longjia's pride, he had to select someone else in competition with Qianye. So he naturally selected Wei Pochin because he was the second best contestant at the recruitment camp. Longjia liked the potential Pochin possessed because of his family status and strength. Pochin's secret combat skills were also really good, but he had no real-world experience, and thus lost to Qianye in all the exams. Qianye was a polished combatant because he graduated from Netherworld training camp, which was one of the best training academies in the Empire. Longjia once again made fun of Qianye because he thought that Qianye had no potential to grow, as he had already reached his peak. Pochin had great room to grow further and become stronger. Their talk escalated even further, and they started to make fun of each other's parent army groups. Longjia made fun of Lin Xitang, the chief of Red Scorpions. Lishi could not bear that and became very pissed at him. So Longjia offered him a bet. The bet was to see if Qianye could beat the seniors from the Broken Wings Angel group after 1 year. If he achieved that and won the bet, Qianye and the Red Scorpions would get a 6th grade force gun as a deal. Lishi instantly accepted the deal because he knew the potential Qianye possessed was great and he could win the bet. 12 hours had passed since the force exam that Qianye had given. He was immediately taken to the medical center of the Imperial Army recruitment assessment to heal his injuries. To reach level 20 of Force Tide, his internal organs were damaged and hurt badly. His body was soaked in the muscle recovery solution for half a day, and that had healed his injuries quite fast, and he was feeling a lot better. When he finally felt normal, he was allowed to leave that place since the recruitment assessment was over. Qianye left the building and met Yan, who was waiting for him outside the building. Yan was very excited to see Qianye and appreciated him for completing the test. Qianye was unaware of what Yan was appreciating him about, since he did not know the results at that time. Yan then told him that the Red Scorpions had recruited him and selected him as a soldier in their army. He even showed Qianye the acceptance letter because he could not believe that one of the top 5 armies in the Empire had selected him as their member. Qianye's Force Tide level was at the borderline of the requirement criteria, so he thought he would not be selected by any of the top 5 armies. But the Red Scorpions had assessed his potential and were eager to meet him in 3 days at the recruitment camp. To celebrate the big moment, Qianye and Yan were about to go get some drinks when they were stopped by someone. It was Wei Pochin once again, and he was not happy about his losses. All losses from the exam test had built a high amount of anger within him. He wanted to fight Qianye again and take out all of his anger on him. He was even selected by the Broken Wings Angel, and he felt very prideful at that time. Since he could not beat Qianye in a combat or one-on-one fight, he had one more thing in mind. He offered Qianye a drinking challenge to satisfy his manly personality. Whoever won the drinking challenge would win the bet, and that time it was Pochin's belt on the table. If Qianye won the challenge, he would get Pochin's very important belt. Both of them and Uncle Yan then went to the market and sat in one of the bars, which was famous for drinks. Pochin instantly ordered 24 of the best tequila that the drinking bar had and got on with it. Both of them were served by waitresses from the bar. Pochin kept on going and was about to empty his first bottle very quickly. Even Qianye and the waitresses were surprised by that, and they appreciated him for going on for that long. Soon it was dark and they both were still going. None of them had vomited yet, but things did not look good for Pochin. He picked up another glass and was about to take a sip, but the unexpected happened. Pochin vomited and his head dropped on the table. Surprisingly, Uncle Yan also got drunk and was found lying down on the floor under the table. The challenge ended and Qianye took both of them outside on his shoulders. The bar owner was amazed by Qianye's talent and had never seen a person like that before in his bar. He even invited him to come again and drink at his bar. Qianye took both of them to their room and dropped them on one bed. As they both were drunk, they were already unconscious and sleeping, so Qianye had the other room to himself alone. He went and lay down on his bed before falling asleep in moments. Suddenly his eyes opened, and when he looked at the clock it was 5 in the morning. His routine at Netherworld training camp was so strict that it had become a habit for him to wake up at 5. His head hurt from the drinking he did the previous night, and so he went out onto the balcony to get some air. Since he had nothing else to do, he decided to practice martial arts and not waste his time. He was determined to achieve a high rank in the military to meet his father one day. After some time, Uncle Jan woke up too and could not figure out why and where he was. He had drunk so much the previous night that he could not hold up as well. He found Tianye training outside and so came to him for a chat. Then Jan gave him a small note from the eldest young master of the Wei family, Wei Pochian. Pochian had left the place early in the morning and left a message for Tianye. The message said to fight him again the next day. Tianye was surprised by the determination of the guy and so decided to show no mercy to him in the next fight. Meanwhile, Pochian was sitting in his room back at the Wei family's mansion. He was utterly disappointed by his performance. He could not believe how he had lost to an innocent-faced person who did not even look like a fighter. While he was pondering on his huge defeat, a servant of the Wei family brought a parcel that was for Pochian. When Pochian opened the box, it contained all the belongings he had lost in the bets with Tianye. There was his bracelet, necklace, and his respected belt. Tianye had returned his belongings to him with a note as well. The note instructed Pochian to clear his debts before challenging Tianye again. Pochian was very eager to fight Tianye once again, but he lost hope when he read that note. He was required to clear the 3 of his debts before he could challenge Tianye to a fight again. Tianye, however, was going to go through a very important phase of his life then. He reached the Red Scorpion Army recruitment camp to check in and meet the members. Right when he entered the building, he met Wei Lishi, the colonel of Scorpion Army who had selected him. Tianye was intimidated by Lishi's strong and tough body by just shaking his hand with him. Jan also met Lishi because they both knew each other for a long time. It had been 9 years and 11 months since they both had met last time. Lishi wanted to know why Jan was not with Lin Shui and walking with a fresh Netherworld camp graduate. To give Lishi his answer, Jan made Tianye take off his shirt and show Lishi the injury on his chest. The injury was a mysterious one which left a huge scar on his lower chest. Even Tianye himself did not know why or from who he got that injury. Right when Lishi saw the injury scar, he understood that Tianye was a special kid. After that, Jan left the place and let Lishi take care of Tianye from there on. He knew that Tianye was in good hands and would be safe there. Lishi then took Tianye outside the building to show him the other area of the Red Scorpion Army camp. All the new recruits of the Red Scorpion Army were given the title of Rookie. Just like Lishi himself and all the other members of Red Scorpion, Tianye was going to be a rookie for 2 years there. Rookies were also required to obey the Young Scorpion and Black Scorpion, who were their seniors. Even though Tianye was a very strong soldier, it was necessary for him to obey his seniors and work under them until he was a rookie. After 2 years, he could receive a promotion according to the circumstances. There was also a very honorable rule among the Red Scorpions. The life of the rookies was their top priority at all times. If there was a danger on the battlefield, the rookies were required to retreat first, even before the veterans. The veterans were not allowed to place the rookies' lives on the line for their own benefit. Tianye was very stoked to hear all that because he found out that the Red Scorpions were a very honorable military group, and they respected their juniors. Soon after that, Lishi and Tianye reached a big empty area outside the building. A huge dragon-shaped aircraft came there to pick them up. It was called the Scorpion Tail, and it was used to transport Red Scorpion members from one place to the other. They boarded the huge aircraft, and Lishi told him that their next stop would be the Red Scorpion headquarters. The Scorpion Tail was a very fast machine, and so all the members were strictly required to wear seatbelts inside and sit tightly to avoid any injuries. They arrived at the Red Scorpion headquarters within a few moments because the Scorpion Tail was a fast machine. Tianye and the other rookies had fallen asleep because of the smooth ride of the aircraft. The ship captain went to them and tried to wake them up as they had reached their destination. However, Tianye was in a deep sleep. He was dreaming about the jeep ride with Uncle Jan. He thought they were going to the Netherworld training camp. Batian was the leader of Tiger Scorpion camp and was a very strong and tough person. His size was huge and Tianye looked like a kid in front of him. From that day, Tianye was a member of Tiger Scorpion camp and would work as a rookie under Batian. Batian gave him his uniform and told him to get changed within 5 minutes. After that, they both went outside for a training session. Tianye was soon found walking behind Batian while listening to his instructions carefully. Since Tianye was a rookie, he could not go on private missions alone until he graduated from the rookie rank. First of all, for half a year, he would have to go through special training as a rookie. Batian even told him that Netherworld was an easy place as compared to Red Scorpion training camp. He would have to work even harder to accomplish his goals there. Then Batian gave him a bag full of standard equipment and a sniper kit. It was an extremely heavy supply bag and Tianye could not even hold it up properly. He had to drag it all the way because Batian was going to show him all the other departments of the headquarters in case Qianye needed anything important. The rookie training was a vast exercise. Rookies were taught everything, including piloting military aircrafts, their aerodynamics, making force guns, and also fixing clothes. So Qianye was strictly advised not to miss any part of the training if he wanted to be successful on the field. If he missed a small basic technique, it could lead to a flaw on the battlefield. He was determined to go through the tough training ahead and learn all the secret tricks of the Red Scorpions. Just like that, 4 months passed and Qianye was training hard. One day he was found in the virtual fighting room training his mixed martial arts. Before the fight, the virtual fighting system read all of his information and checked his essentials, including hands and legs. Qianye's opponent was a virtual projection of a Blood Tribe member with force level of 3. Meanwhile, he himself was at force level 2. The both of them were ready to start their fight, and the Blood Tribe member was irritated that a level 2 fighter called him for a virtual challenge. There was a 5-second countdown for the fight, and both of them were staring each other in the eyes before the counter hit 0. The fight started off with a punch from both the contestants, and so the effect was not much on either person. However, while his opponent was waiting for an opening, Qianye took action first, and as soon as he saw an opening, he used his knee to kick the guy's face. That hurt the guy and distracted him. Qianye took that to his advantage and started landing a bunch of punches and kicks on him. The guy got confused and was not able to comprehend what was happening. He was constantly getting punches and kicks from all sides and could not block them all. Soon his face was filled with blood and his eyes turned white out of fear. He could not believe that he was not able to stand attacks from a force level 2 rookie. Qianye's opponent was soon down on his knees, but Qianye was still having fun beating him. The virtual link was also about to break, but before he could finish off his opponent, Bashin came from behind and unplugged his virtual fight. He told him that there was a task for him and he could get some military merits from it. It was a task related to defeating Dark Tribe fighters, and so it would be beneficial for him. But before Qianye came out of the virtual ring, he made sure to finish off his opponent and told Batian to wait until the fight was over. He kicked the guy's head, and the fight was over. It was a fair and square victory for him. Even Batian was impressed by Qianye's combat with a level 3 Blood Tribe member, and he appreciated him. Half an hour after that, Qianye and all the other Red Scorpion members were ready to go on the task Batian told him about. Many trucks and airships left the headquarters, and it seemed like a high-level mission. There were a total of 50 rookies in that mission, and all of them had one main goal, but different small separate tasks. Each rookie was given their own part of the mission, and they had to finish it with ease, and they were allowed to be flexible within the limits of following the instructions. The mission was related to the Blood Tribe. The Blood Tribe had occupied a small border town located in the lower continent. The border town was very important for the Imperial army because there existed a secret research base for the Empire there. Since the local garrison had failed to recapture the town, it was time for the Red Scorpions to show their power and complete the mission. The Blood Tribe was one of the most important parts of the Dark Tribe. Their members had a long life with immense amounts of wisdom. Their body was similar to humans, but their face was different, and humans could never attain that face. They also had great strength, and on top of all that, they had super speed to make them agile as well. Their reproduction was also fast because of one special thing. They could inject their blood into human beings to make them members of the Blood Tribe. This technique was called First Embrace, and the Dark Tribe members loved to use it because they had a liking for human blood. Humans and the Blood Tribe had a rough history, because when the Dark Tribe ruled the world, humans were kept as slaves. Qianye had killed Blood Tribe members before at Netherworld camp, and just a few hours back at Red Scorpion training camp, but he knew those were different. They were all going on a real fight that time, and tens of thousands of troops had been called for that large-scale mission. It was considered as a real war against the Blood Tribe members. Before the combat, Bachin cheered up his troops and told them to give their best at the war. The rookies were especially cheered up to not get them panicked, as challenging for real war. Then before reaching the destination, Bachin distributed the pure silver force bomb among the rookies. Apparently it was the most practical thing against the Blood Tribe fighters, and it would be very useful in combat. The silver force bomb was given with the pure silver force bullet in hand as well. Since mithril was the best and most effective substance on Dark Tribe fighters, the silver force bullets were made of mithril. They were very strong and contained high and concentrated firepower. Because of their immense power, the rookies were warned to only use 3 bullets. More than 3 bullets could cause trouble for the rookies because they were not strong enough to withstand that much force. They even had a risk of getting drained after firing more than 3 bullets. So, Qianye was also very careful with handling the bullets and vowed to not waste them. A little time passed after that, and they were at their destination just outside the big siege. All the trucks stopped there and the rookies were ready to go into the battleground. However, right before they could step out of the trucks, the Dark Tribe members started firing bullets at the Red Scorpion convoy. There was chaos everywhere, and the trucks were constantly getting shots from everywhere. Batian shouted at everyone to get out of the truck and find cover instantly. All the rookies started evacuating the trucks, and Batian also led a squad of rookies behind him. Right when they got out of the trucks and found cover behind a big stone, one of the trucks caught fire and blasted behind them. Batian and his squad were under heavy artillery fire and gunfire. There were rockets coming at them from all sides and destruction was at its peak. While they were advancing towards the huge building ahead, they encountered 3 dark tribe fighters aiming at them. Qianye instantly shot 2 of them, but the third one was left and he was about to pull the trigger on him just before Batian shot him and saved Qianye's life. Batian was impressed with Qianye's shooting skills and aim. He hit all headshots with pure silver force bullets and even the silver-plated bullets as well. At the end of the fight, he used his silver-plated sword to fight off his opponents and finish them. Qianye was acing it all and was way better than the other rookies. Batian was surprised by all that and was staring at Qianye's face. Meanwhile, Qianye was still not satisfied with his performance and thought that his higher-ups would not be happy. He was totally wrong right then. After the fight there, they went towards the ruined city which was left after the fight. The preliminary cleaning period had ended 15 minutes earlier than they had anticipated. This made them early on schedule, and so they had a bit of time to rest. After the fight, their next task was to clean up the remaining vampires and pollution in the ruined city. They had to work with the local army to accomplish that task because it required a lot of manpower. The Red Scorpion army had to wait a long while for the local army to show up because they had finished the fight way earlier than the schedule. Quite some time passed and the local army was nowhere to be seen. Batian was angry that he had to wait for them to show up. A little while later, a small person showed up to the place and informed Batian about his rank. He was the 3rd class from the 14th division of the local army group. Batian was extremely furious at him for being late, but he assured him that his team was there then. After he said that, 10 whole minutes passed before his team arrived there. Batian was very disappointed to see the local army's laziness, and he shouted at them for being late. Batian gathered all the members there and looked at them with disappointment in his eyes. He told them that they were lazy members of the local army and they should have been on time. When the small 3rd-class person made an excuse to Batian's anger, he was instantly hit on the head by a very furious Batian, and he even got a huge bump on his head because of that. The mission then was to search inside the ruined buildings and look for any red blood members, blood salves, or any remnants left. There was chaos everywhere with buildings on fire and rocks piled up on the street. Batian was leading the Red Scorpions and the local army for the mission to clean up everything thoroughly. All the men, including Batian, were walking on the street towards the buildings. Qianye, however, felt that something was wrong. He could clearly hear all the footsteps of each of the men, and that was not supposed to happen. The whole street was totally quiet. There was not a single sound other than the footsteps of the troops. According to Qianye, the street should not have been that quiet. There should have been some noise there if there were any red blood slaves or remnants there. The whole army was about to approach a huge building near a roundabout, but Qianye stopped them right there. He had a really bad feeling about the building in front of them and was sure that there was something wrong inside. Suddenly, they started hearing strange voices from inside the building. The local army leader could not figure out what it was because his eyesight was very weak. The strange sounds were getting louder and louder, and within moments the front door of the building was smashed. There were hundreds of zombies that came out through the door rushing towards the group of troops. They looked very dreadful, and were coming at full speed at Batian's squad. When the local army leader saw that, he became frightened and could not understand what was happening. Qianye instantly started shooting at the zombies with his automatic gun. He started making holes through the bodies of the zombies and killing them one by one. While Qianye was shooting at them, the local army 3rd class carefully looked at the clothes the zombies were wearing. He soon figured out that they were wearing the local army uniforms. That meant that all the zombies there were actually local army members. They had been turned into blood slaves by the Dark Tribe. All the zombies were the local army members who had been trapped in the city when the first 2 missions were carried out before that. Batian's mission was the 3rd one at that place. When he told all that to Batian, they had 2 choices. The first one was to keep shooting them, and the second one was to stop shooting to save their lives but run from that place. Batian chose the first option and commanded his troops to keep shooting at the zombies. That was because he knew that the zombies were no longer humans. They were blood slaves, and they were coming to kill them all. So all the troops opened fire on the zombies. Between all that gunfire, the local army leader suddenly started running towards the horde of zombies. He saw a familiar face among them and rushed towards him. It was actually his brother. His brother had been on one of the 2 missions carried out before theirs, and had been trapped in the city. He hugged him tightly in between all the dreadful killing and offered to go home with him after that mission. He quickly shouted at Qianye and the others to tell them that his brother was alive, and he needed some help because he was injured. Right when he was bringing him back, Qianye aimed at his brother and shot him directly in the head. His brother instantly fell down to the floor with blood all around him and his face demolished. For the first few seconds, he could not figure out what just happened. Then, he looked at the ground and saw his brother's dead body with blood all over it. Seeing that, he went into a frenzy and started panicking and shouting. He could not believe all that was happening around him. Soon the troops ceased to fire, and they had killed all the zombies there. In the middle of all the chaos was the local army leader. He was still standing there holding his brother's dead body in his hands and hoping for a miracle to happen. He was very dear to his brother and could never think of him dying in his hands. Everyone else, including Qianye and Batian, were all shocked by seeing his love for his brother. His brother was not a very jolly person. He did not smile very often, or rather at all. His brother had left for the mission in his place 2 days ago because he was ill. He did not even smile before leaving the house for a war, and he even knew that coming back home was not assured. But he was still loved by him and his parents equally. They all had different ways of expressing their feelings to each other, and a smile was not important for them. When he saw his brother's dead body in his hand, he felt immense amounts of anger and sorrow. His anger was directly linked to Qianye. Since Qianye had shot his brother, he looked at him with rage in his eyes. He thought that if Qianye had not shot his brother would be able to live just like a human. However, he was totally wrong. His brother had been infected by the wounds from the dark tribe fighters, and he had been turned into a blood slave. He could never be saved and could never live life as a human being again. The local army leader's anger for Qianye was so much that he pulled out his gun and aimed it at Qianye in hopes of killing him as revenge. Just when he was about to pull the trigger, Batian shot him from the side of his hand and his gun dropped. He had blood all on his hands and he was suffering from pain. But there was another thing wrong. The local army third-class leader had also been infected by a dark tribe poisonous wound. It was probably from his brother, since they both were hugging each other and he was contaminated. That meant that the guy was contaminated too and he was a zombie. They had to get rid of him as soon as possible. So Batian asked Qianye if he could do it and pull the trigger on him. And he did. Before dying, the guy was shouting at the Red Scorpions and cursing them for not being early to save his brother. Those were his last words. The rule in the military for betrayers was that they could be killed if they did not follow the rules and harmed the military personnel. So technically, Qianye was not going to be punished for killing that guy. After that, the local army was tasked with cleaning that whole area and removing all the dead bodies. Everyone else was requested to meet together at a designated area after 20 minutes. Since he had 20 minutes, Qianye went on to look for other dangers in the streets of the destroyed city. While he was roaming around a street, he suddenly started feeling strange thoughts in his head. It seemed like the local army leader whom he just killed was appearing in his mind. Him and his brother were running at Qianye with a gun, and then Qianye felt like they shot him in the head, just like he shot them both. Qianye was having lucid dreams and he was very tired from all the fighting he just did. The guy in his mind was constantly asking him why he had not saved him. He had never been that tired before, even at Netherworld training camp. He could not get the thought out of his head that he had just killed innocent people who once maintained the state of the Empire. He even started having thoughts of his future kids being contaminated by blood tribe infections. Right when the burden of all the dead bodies started mentally disturbing him and he was about to lose his sanity, he heard a strange voice coming from a building near him. It looked like there was a survivor asking for help. Qianye instantly got hold of himself and rushed to check it out. He climbed through countless stairs in the blink of an eye and went near the voice. All the zombies blocking his way were taken care of by his semi-automatic rifle. However, when he finally reached there, he saw a very strange sight. Just in front of him was a shattered window, which led to one of the bedrooms of the huge building. He saw a little girl crying there for help in the hands of a zombie. The little girl was getting manhandled by a big, fully grown male zombie. The zombie was about to kill the little girl and feed on her. Qianye reached there just in time to save her. He took out his semi-automatic rifle and opened fire on the zombie. The zombie was brutally hit on the head, and it instantly fell to the floor and died there. Then he went up close to the little girl to check up on her. She was constantly crying out loud because she was in a big panic. Being in the hands of a zombie and about to be eaten by it was a scary feeling indeed, and she would not stop crying about it. Qianye tried to calm her down by telling her that he had saved her and was not going to hurt her. He kept telling her that for a few times before she looked at him and stopped crying. When she looked at his face, she thought that it was her big brother. The little girl then stopped crying because Qianye looked like her big brother, and she thought she was in safe hands and no one would hear her after that. Everything started to feel better, but Qianye made a shocking discovery right then. He looked at her left arm and saw a big wound. He instantly figured out that the wound was from the zombie and it was contaminated. This meant that the girl would turn into a zombie too, but had not yet. The effect of the contamination had not kicked in at that time. The little girl had been in that place for a few days. She had been hiding in a closet in that room to stay away from the zombies. However, that day she got unlucky and a zombie found her and eventually she got injured. Qianye knew that he was late because if he came a little earlier, He could have saved the little girl's life. Suddenly out of the blue, the little girl offered Qianye a candy from her pocket. She told him that if he ate that, he would no longer feel pain and sadness. Since she was happy that she got saved by her big brother, she wanted to give the candy to her big brother to save him from the pain. Qianye's eyes filled with tears. He was very sad to see the innocent girl unaware of her condition offering him a candy. Within moments after that, she started to feel dizzy, and her head started to hurt. She then started screaming with immense pain and sorrow. The contaminated wound was finally kicking in, and she was about to turn into a zombie. If she had turned into one, it would be troublesome for everyone else, and even her. Living as a zombie was more painful than dying. So, to save her from the misery, Qianye had to pull the trigger on her with hesitation. He then stood there looking at her lifeless body with tears in his eyes and depression in his mind. Qianye blamed himself for not being able to save the girl. In his eyes, he could have been there earlier and killed the zombie and avoided that misery. Standing there for a few minutes, reality kicked into Qianye's mind, and he decided that he should be fighting enemies rather than wasting time there. There could be more people in danger like that little girl, and he was able to save them if he did not focus on the past and keep fighting. So he quickly ran from that building and jumped into the battleground below. Qianye was so motivated at that moment that he opened fire on the enemies in front of him with one hand only. His heavy semi-automatic rifle was shooting rounds from one hand only. Qianye was very pissed at the Blood Tribe for treating the human race as animals and using them as slaves, and then attacking them with their army. Right there that day, he vowed to never spare the life of a vampire again. From that day on, he wanted to keep fighting the Blood Tribe for the sake of his friends, instructor, and country. His determination and motivation was at an all-time peak because of the incident that just happened, and his eyes had turned red with anger. It was getting darker by every minute, and Qianye was moving through the chaos looking for his enemies. Suddenly, he saw a red smoke coming out from far away in the direction he was moving. He instinctively understood it was the gathering signal of the Red Scorpions and the local army. With the red smoke, Batian announced through a loudspeaker to let everyone know that it was time to retreat from there. All the troops were required to gather at the central square within 10 minutes of the announcement. If they failed to do that, it would mean that they had been infected and were blood slaves. Anyone who reached there after 10 minutes was allowed to be shot by the troops. This step was for extra security so that the army would not lose more members to the blood slaves. Few troops of the Red Scorpion army gathered there soon, including Qianye. They were instructed to hold there for a while until the 10 minutes were finally over. Then, Batian gave them a shocking order. All the troops under Batian's command were ordered to shoot all the civilians which were present in that area. When Qianye heard that, he froze right there. He hesitated to shoot them even though he knew that they had wounds on them, and they were hiding the wounds. All the Red Scorpion rookies were hesitant to follow Batian's direct order because of the innocent faces of the civilians. In the whole crowd, there were several blood slaves, and some of the people left were infected and some were normal. However, it was impossible to know who was normal and who was infected, so the correct way to handle that situation as a military procedure was to put all of them into a special black mine. Then they would be required to keep mining until they died. But Batian knew that he had no time for all that, and there was no special mine there as well. The only way to get rid of the contamination was to clean them all. When he saw Qianye resisting the shot, he went up to him with a frightening face and instructed him to do what he was told. Batian could not take the risk of letting one unchecked blood slave destroy the whole city, so he had to make the tough choice. Qianye had no other choice. If he disobeyed Batian's direct orders, he would be committing treason. In that case, he would be locked up in prison for 10 days after the fight, and his Red Scorpion army badge would be suspended for time being. Batian also motivated them by sharing his own struggles with them. The rookies had not even killed 100 blood slaves at that time, whereas Batian had killed thousands. He had been fighting for a long time, and he knew the harsh conditions of the war between the human race and the Dark Tribe. It was always a life or death situation, and one had to make a decision fast. A single decision by the Red Scorpion army right there could make the Imperial army face consequences for a long time. So he shouted at his troops to put their feelings aside and follow his order right then. They could not take even a small risk because of the fear of trouble being caused by a single Red Blood member. After that much convincing, the rookies finally decided to obey his order, and they pulled out their guns. All the rookies, including Qianye, took aim at the civilians' heads and opened fire at once. Within seconds, all of the crowd was dead down on the street. Their lifeless bodies were like a group of ants on the floor. A mass bloodshed happened right there in the central square. Batian then appreciated his soldiers and lit up a cigarette because he was very proud of them for obeying him. He let them know that the mission was completed, and it was time for them to leave the place. All of the Red Scorpion army was loaded back into the trucks, including the rookies, and they were off to the city again. The atmosphere inside the trucks was of sorrow and depression. It was the first time for the rookies to be in a large-scale warlike mission, and they feared every part of it. Even Qianye was not in his best mood because of all the bloodshed that happened back there. The rookies' seniors tried to comfort them by letting them know that it was the fault of the Blood Tribe. The deaths of all the innocent people were because of the Blood Tribe. It was a natural consequence of fighting them, and the deaths were inevitable. The senior comforting them had a deep background of his own. He had to shoot through his own brother's heart because he had been bitten by a vampire. That was the turning point of his life as a soldier, and from that day onwards he vowed to never forgive the Blood Tribe. He wanted to keep fighting them until they were all dead, or until he was dead. There was no other option for him. In fact, every other veteran in the Red Scorpion Army had a similar fate. They all had a shocking background, and since then were determined to end the Blood Tribe. If not, then they wanted to at least die fighting on the battlefield. If a Red Scorpion member was captured by a Blood Tribe vampire, they would be a part of the terrible experiment. The Dark Tribe carried their experiments on the members of the Special Armies to study the human race. Since the Special Army troops had excellent physiques and could withstand more force, they were the perfect option to carry out experiments. The Dark Tribe members used them for their own benefit and then discarded their bodies after that. According to Baitian, that procedure was even worse than being infected by a Blood Tribe vampire and turning into one. It was said that once the Dark Tribe completed the experiments, they were going to use them to end the human race in the next war. But for then, Qianye and the other rookies did not need to worry because they were in the good hands of Batian and the other veterans, and they were going to be protected until they graduated. After 3 days, the Red Scorpion Army was finally back at the Qinlu headquarters of the Red Scorpions. Qianye was strolling through the corridors with the war still on his mind when he ran into Colonel Wei. Wei told him that Chief Lin, Qianye's father, was at Qinlu 2 days ago, and his adjutant even contacted the Red Scorpion headquarters to know if Qianye was there. When Qianye heard that, he froze right there, and could not believe that he might have had a chance to see his father. He was unlucky and missed it because of the war. But then Qianye's thoughts suddenly changed. He was a little bit happy that he did not get to meet his father. If he had met his father, he would not know what to say to him as he was just a rookie who enrolled with the Red Scorpion. So just knowing that his father called to ask about him was enough for Qianye. Then he left Colonel Wei and went to the Red Scorpion rookie dormitory with the other guys. Just when he approached his room, his roommate told him that there was a letter for him on the table inside. Upon hearing that, Qianye rushed into the room to open the letter because he thought it was from his father. However, his excitement died down as soon as he found out that the letter was from Wei Potian, his long-lost rival. Inside the letter, Potian wrote many proud things about himself. It had been almost half a year, and he had finally reached level 3 as a soldier at Broken Wings Angel. He outperformed all the other rookies there, and also mastered the force etching technique. To show Qianye that, he also sent a cartridge case along with the letter. It had an etched force array on it to increase the force conversion rate. Qianye was impressed by looking at the cartridge case. At the end of the letter, Potian once again offered Qianye a bet. He recalled the military competition bet they had made earlier, and since there were still 6 months left before the end of the bet, Potian was ready to fight Qianye again. When Qianye read all that, he became furious as well. They both were determined to fight each other at the end of the year. One was from Red Scorpion, and the other was from Broken Wings Angel, and it was going to be a legendary fight. Over the course of the next few months, Qianye's determination and motivation made his military record rise up like a rocket. He went on numerous military missions and left behind all the privileged kids of the respected and high-ranked families. Qianye was soon at the top of the military merit board for the rookies of the Red Scorpion Army. The main reason for this success was because of his unique battle style. His battlefield style was a combination of calmness and ruthlessness. He was calm when fighting, but ruthless when killing. It looked like Qianye was made just for the dreadful task of killing. He was a good team fighter as well as an extraordinary solo fighter. He could use the battleground to his advantage just about anywhere. Since the day when Qianye killed a blood warrior equivalent to a level 4 military warrior, his killing technique was sharpened to its best. After that day, he was on a constant frenzy of killing Blood Tribe warriors. Wherever he went, the casualty rate of the Dark Tribe members soared up high in the sky. Bachin was even worried that because of Qianye's immense progress, his force practice might lag behind. Qianye's growth was not stopping at all. Many deputy commanders were attracted to his progress, and some aristocrats even became interested in recruiting him. Qianye had become a rising star in the eyes of many, including his mentors and his enemies. All was going well for him, except that he had only one regret. He was still bothered by the fact that he could not meet his father, Lin Shitang. One night, Qianye and some of his friends were sitting in the woods with fellow military members of the logistics department. They told him some facts about Lin Shitang while sitting near the fire. Chief Lin was admired by every other member of the military, including the Red Scorpions. Lin's history was very rich. He was born a viscount and was not included in the respected top families of the state back then. He got promoted because of his own efforts and immense determination to do something for the state. He reached the Imperial Marshal rank in his early 40s and was the youngest person to become the top 10 member of the Empire Marshal. Then, he formed a duo together with Zhang Boqian. Their duo was called the Double Jewels of the Empire. They were unbeatable in every task they were given. Lin had won uncountable battles and badges in his 30 years of military service. The main reason was that he could guess the future and make strategies for it using his celestial technique of Dian Tianji tactic. Many lost battles were won because of him. About a decade ago, there was a huge fight between the Empire and the Dark Tribe. The main military branch was the Red Scorpion, and they were fighting at the front end. The fight was becoming a hopeless one for the Empire because all the reinforcements were dragged into the void when they were hit by a rare phenomenon of rainbow turbulent flow. Just when they thought it was over, Lin Shitang's North Army entered the battlefield through the Death Star Road and came to save the Empire. Because of Lin Shitang's efforts, the Red Scorpion army of more than 100,000 men was able to escape the phenomenon and arrive back safely. If Shitang had not been on time, the Red Scorpions could have been wiped off from the military books and removed from the Imperial army of the Empire. Soon their long chat ended, and it was getting late, so Qianye thanked the logistics department for their hospitality and help. Qianye was also tasked with making a meal while they were chatting, and he had completed that task too. Before leaving, one of the logistics department members invited Qianye to come cook with him another time. He told Qianye that he was very good at cooking, and it was his second best skill after shooting. After the logistics department member left, Qianye and his Red Scorpion mates were ready to start the mission they were tasked with. Qianye did not know his mates personally, but they knew him because of the fame he had risen up to. He could not believe that even the Broken Wings Angel Army knew about him and his missions. After some time, Qianye and his mates reached the logistics area to give them their supplies. They were tasked with supplying the logistics area because due to the efforts of the 200,000 logistics troops, the 10,000 Red Scorpion troops could be efficient and execute quality missions. Some beasts had inhabited an area near the logistics facility, and so they could not collect herbs. That is why Qianye and his squad were called for that mission. When they gave the female member of the logistics team the supplies, she offered them 3 things in return. One was the reward for the task, the other was the military merit, and the third option was the recipe of the Red Scorpion's secret liver-exploding drug. Qianye instantly chose the liver-exploding drug recipe, and one of the other guys chose that too, while the last one chose the military merit. When Qianye found out that even the female logistics member knew about him, he was shocked. She even wished him good luck for the upcoming military competition with the Broken Wings Angel. By that time, Qianye was a very famous soldier in the whole military of the Empire. Somewhere far away in a dirty coal mine, a little girl and boy were working together. After coming out of the mines, the boy approached the girl and asked her if there was any lunch left for him. She shouted at him for only coming out when lunch was over, but then also gave him a small bowl which she had saved for him. The boy was very happy to see the delicious hot bowl of rice, and as a thank you gesture, he gave her a small precious stone he found at the mine that day. When the girl saw it, she was shocked. It was the raw stone of somite. If their mines could produce that stone, everyone there would have to work less than half the time they used to work then. Before leaving the mines to show the stone to her father, she saw a shiny bottle fall out of the boy's pocket. There were some beautiful blue-colored sand grains filled in the bottle, and it looked mesmerizing. So she also asked him for that bottle and took it home with her. Meanwhile, in a far remote place, which was a small cave located under a rock, a grown-up woman suddenly woke up and saw the reinforcements sent by the Empire to destroy her and everyone else. 3 days before all that happened, the Red Scorpions were ready to leave on a mission. The mission was located in a remote province, and so the ship captain advised them to rest while they reached the place. The mission was going to be conducted by Qianye, a rookie, and 5 other veterans. He was worried if 6 people could fight off the rebels in the remote area. The rebels had kidnapped the Viscount Lord's fiancée and hid in the mountains in the rural area. The Viscount's own army could not handle the situation, and so they had to ask the Empire for help. The rebels were strong and tough people, so backup had to be called, and the Red Scorpions were there for that. Soon, they were hovering over one of the Viscount's private army stations, and so the veterans asked the ship captain to stop there. All of them jumped down from the airship one by one, and Qianye was the last one to land at the location. When they landed, they were met by a large group of troops from the local army. Their leader was standing in front of them all on a big white horse. When he looked at the Red Scorpion members, he was confused by the fact that there were only 6 members. He could not figure out why the Empire would send only 6 troops as reinforcements. According to him, 6 troops were no match for the rebels of the mountains. As a response, a veteran from the Red Scorpions, mocked their leader by calling the large group of local army trash. When the local army's leader heard that, he became very pissed at him. He thought that the veteran was just a normal head soldier being arrogant. To save his ego and pride, he pulled his long whip in the air and slashed it towards the veteran to hit him and show him who the boss was. But to his surprise, the veteran caught the speedy whip with his bare hand and pulled it with so much force that the local army's leader fell from his own horse. When some of the other troops saw that their leader fell to the floor, they also became furious at the Red Scorpions. Every one of them pulled out their guns and were ready to shoot the 6 Red Scorpions. But before they could make a move, Chianye and the other veterans shot them in the head with their rifles. At that point, the leader of the local army was begging for his life on the ground, and all the other local army troops were also begging for mercy. The veteran then announced that they were the Red Scorpions and not some trash military troops, and he told them to never mess with them again. Back at the dirty mine, the little girl took the precious stone to her father so that he could examine it. She was very curious if there were dark crystal or veins in their mines. After careful examination of the stone by her father, he told her that the dark crystal's quality was not extraordinary. It was a type of unique black stone which appeared in black stone mines, so it was not confirmed if their mine had dark crystal or veins or not, but it was still worth a try. The precious stone brought in some hope for them. Her father asked her to thank the little boy who found the precious stone and gave it to her. He also told her to be careful around the mines next time because it was a dangerous area. She did not care much about the danger and was very happy upon hearing the good news and quickly rushed out the door to inform everyone else about it. Meanwhile, back at the local army station, things cooled down a bit. One of the reporters of the local army gave the Red Scorpions a paper with a sketch of the Viscount's fiancée to show them how she looked. He then told them that if they successfully brought her back, the Viscount would give them a generous gift. All their military expenses had already been paid, and they were going to receive a special gift for them if the woman was brought back safely. After hearing all the mission details, the Red Scorpion veteran took out his rifle and pointed it at the man's head. He asked him if he had any last words. The man could not understand why they would kill him. The veteran explained to him that borrowing the Red Scorpions was okay, but the Viscount borrowed the Red Scorpions for his own benefit. That was not okay at all, and they would have to pay the price. So, the veteran had to kill the man to warn the Viscount to not mess with them the next time. Messing with the Red Scorpions was not a good idea, since they were like a sharp blade. After the big talk in front of the big group of local army troops, he finally pulled the trigger and killed the man. All the local army troops were really scared at that point and feared their lives. Chianye was worried if the killing they did was okay, because it was ethically and morally wrong to kill one's own people. However, one of the veterans told him that they had a casualty indicator, and they could accidentally hurt their own people to a limit. So they could register the deaths as a casualty indicator in the reports later, but everyone knew that actually it was all for nobility and show of strength. The woman in the faraway cave under the big mountain was actually the Viscount's fiancée. She was hiding there with her father and the workers of her father's mine. Her grandma advised her to run before the army troops were there to look for her, but she refused to do so. She did not want to leave her family behind and run off alone. She wanted to remain by their side till the end. Since all that drama happened because of her, she did not want them to be hurt. According to her, she was the one responsible for it and should take the consequences. She was determined to fight them all if they came to hurt her family. The workers standing beside her were of the view that they would not be found in that hidden cave. Since the local army was not able to find them after searching for so long, they thought that the special reinforcements would not find them as well. Suddenly a boy came running into the cave and shouted that the reinforcements of the Empire were almost there and had found them. Upon hearing that, the workers picked up axes and staff and decided to go out and fight for their lives. Since they were able to live longer because of the woman, they were ready to sacrifice their lives for her. However, the Viscount's fiancée was not ready to let them leave. She had caused all the trouble, and so she wanted to be the one to fight them. She did not want anyone else to get hurt. Her grandma held her hand to stop her, but she resisted and wanted to go fight the reinforcements outside. The Red Scorpions finally reached the area, and when Chianye saw the group of rebels waiting for them outside the cave, he was confused. He could not believe that such weak people had made his father, Chief Lin, struggle in the West for so long. The people were more like weak refugees, and it did not look like they could fight. One of the veterans held out the picture of the woman and asked them to bring her out to avoid any trouble. They all resisted, but within moments, the woman came outside herself and turned in. She asked why they were after her and what they wanted from the innocent workers of the mines. The veteran showed the woman a picture of her and told her that they were there to take her back. It was reported that her father was the owner of that mine, and he had secretly funded a rebel team in the mountains. But the main reason they were there was to take her back to the Viscount. They asked her if she really was the Viscount's fiancée, but she refused and disagreed with that. The woman told them that she had no relationship with the Viscount at all. Long ago, on a random day, the Viscount met her and thought of her as a beautiful woman. So he forced her to follow him, and when she resisted, he threatened to kill her father and her real fiancé at that time. It was said that the Viscount also blamed her father for funding rebels because of jealousy, and it was a fake allegation. The woman's family had been serving the Imperial army for 3 generations, and they had been laying their lives for the Empire since then. She was very furious to know that all their loyalty was of no use to the Empire, and an arrogant Viscount could misuse his power to destroy her whole family. She begged the Red Scorpions to change their decision and believe her to be innocent. However, the Red Scorpion had no choice. They were there for that mission, and they had to bring her back to complete the mission. The fate of the mission could not be changed once the mission had started, but the woman was stubborn as well, and was not ready at all to go with them. She warned them that if they took her with them, she would not even let that Viscount near her. She was in no mood to see that arrogant Viscount's face, let alone go live with him. Upon hearing all that fuss from her, the Red Scorpion veteran offered her 2 choices. The first one was to go with them, and they would hand her to the Viscount. On the other hand, the second option was to drink a poisonous potion and die right there. The poisonous potion would let her execute a painless death so that she would not get handed over to the Viscount. Because she was fed up with the rude Viscount, she instantly chose the second option and asked for the potion. The veteran handed over the poisonous potion to her, and she quickly opened it and drank it whole within seconds. Before falling on the ground, she apologized to her family for getting them involved in her huge troubles and bid farewell to them. Before falling unconscious, she started having lucid flashbacks of a distant memory. She was a kid sitting on the grass at night with a boy her age. It was the same boy who had given her the shiny bottle of sand grains back long ago and a blue-colored precious stone. The boy was looking at the shiny sky and talking about the wonders of Chief Lin Shitang. He was a big fan of Shitang and his military adventures and had a different philosophy on life. According to him, every star was a bright destiny and brilliance of the human race progressing day by day. The humans were flickering dust in the Blackstone, and with the help of light, they could shine to their fullest. Soon the woman died right there on the dirty ground. The Red Scorpions then instructed everyone else to drink the potion too, and die with her, or else the mission would not be fully successful. The people had no other choice, so they had to agree with them and drink the potion. Every person was on the floor dead within minutes. Their mission was done there, so the Red Scorpions took all the bodies and handed them over to the Viscount's local army. On their way back to the Red Scorpion headquarters in the airship, Tianye was having deep thoughts about the politics in the military. This mission was a clear reflection of the bad politics happening in the Empire and the Imperial army. Soldiers were mere knives in the hands of the Empire, and when they were asked to cut something, they would do so. They had no choice in deciding if the matter was right or wrong. They had only one task, and that was to follow the Empire's orders. After that mission, Tianye had no other missions for a week and he was free. Since he had nothing else to do, he used to spend his time in the information room and read books to gain knowledge. By reading a lot of books, he soon found his answer to the military's involvement in politics. According to Tianye, the place where soldiers were most valued was the battlefield, and so that was the main goal of them, including Tianye. They did not need to mess with any political stuff because that was the Empire's task. Tianye and the other troops only needed to fight the Dark Tribe members, and that was it. It was a very simple fight between the Empire and the Dark Tribe. One day, Tianye got bored reading and so decided to go meet that logistics department member who was a great cook and once invited him to cook with him. He went to the senior's house and was greeted by him as expected of a cooking lover. The guy was wearing an apron and was in the middle of cooking a delicious meal. He invited Tianye to help him cook and handed him a knife to help with the cutting. Tianye accepted his offer and started slashing fruits and vegetables with the big knife he was given. Since he was already used to handling knives in battles, Tianye cut the fruits and vegetables very finely, and he was appreciated by the senior. He did a very good job as a first-timer, and soon he was done with all the cutting. Then his senior asked him a strange question. He asked Tianye why marinated meat tasted better than normal meat, to which Tianye simply replied that marinated meat had more flavor and spices than normal meat. However, the senior was of a different and deep view. All life depended on force to survive, and just like humans, plants and animals also depended on that. Some animals and plants had special force which created a special growth environment. So, by removing or adding some force attributes and ingredients of a dish, it was possible to make it a lot more delicious and enjoyable than a normal bland dish. To prove all that to Tianye, his senior asked him to taste the dish he had made for him. Right when Tianye took the first bite, he was mesmerized and his eyes started glowing. He quickly finished the whole dish within seconds and could not believe the taste of the dish was that good. It was like a heavenly dish for him. He thanked his senior and asked for more because he became a fan of the dish. They both ate many bowls together and took quite a long time to finish their meal. To repay him somehow, Chanya asked to wash the dishes for him, but before taking the dishes to the kitchen, a strange alarm started sounding. It was the urgent mission notification on the senior's phone. It was a first-level mission notification, and they were required to gather at the blimp pad within 5 minutes. So the senior instantly tasked Qianye to put the dishes down and go with him to the mission station. Meanwhile, at a mansion far away in the woods between the mountains, Lin Shitang was laying down on his bed when his attendant came to him and brought an important parliamentary announcement from a messenger. The message said that the Paradise Lost Lab 3 was exposed and the elite army of the Empire was on their way to capture it. Shitang lazily told the attendant to destroy the laboratory if it was exposed already. That's what they used to do all the time, and so there was no point to disturb Shitang that time. However, the parliament had other plans. They were of the view that if the elite army members somehow got captured in the laboratory, it would be very beneficial for the Empire. Since the people of the elite army were strong people, they could carry out experiments on them without much fear. The attendant also gave Shitang a small paper on which there was written the list of all the elite army members who were going to suppress the laboratory. When Shitang reached out and grabbed the paper and saw his son Lin Qianye's name written on it, he got into a big shock. After reading his son's name on the paper, he thought of not messing with the decisions of the parliament anymore and instructed the ambassador to do whatever they had in mind with the Empire army. Meanwhile, back in Qin City, Qianye and his teammates were flying in the sky on airships. They were going on their first ever level 1 mission. Qianye and the other red and black scorpions were wearing a huge suit of armor, and so he was not fearing anything at that time. Another thing that boosted his confidence was that he was the only rookie selected for that mission, and there was talk of him everywhere on the ship. He was a very famous person at that time, and it was his long-awaited first-level combat mission and experience. The mission was a large-scale mission, and it was assigned by Qianye's father, Marshal Lin Shitang. The team was led by a green-haired veteran who looked quite strong by his build and appearance. Every one of the team members was given first-class combat supplies because of the intensity of the mission. Even their knives were plated with magic mithril. Their main goal was the Dark Tribe base located in a remote area, and they had to destroy that base. Some inside sources had confirmed that the Dark Tribe was the main hand supporting the rebels, and so the Red Scorpions were tasked with destroying the base. The base contained more than one warrior-level powerhouse, and so the leader tasked the rookies to not let any Dark Tribe fighter run away at all costs. Every rookie and veteran there was prepared to put their lives on the line. The leader started chanting slogans of the Red Scorpions and the Empire, and everyone joined along. This boosted their morale quite a lot, and they were ready to fight for their hometowns. Within a few minutes, the airship arrived at the location, and the troops started dropping through the ship one by one. Once they all jumped down into the woods, the airship stood there because it was tasked with being ready for support at any time. Team B-07 had fully landed and was ready to start the mission. Their first task was to reach Mission Point A and gather there. So the team of 4 started walking towards their destination through the abandoned city with broken buildings all around. There were no lights in the city at all, and it was totally dark. Qianye questioned himself if there were really people living there, because he could not believe that a whole city could be abandoned just like that. When the troops were walking, their footsteps could be heard very easily. This made Qianye concerned. It was not okay to hear only footsteps and nothing else. There must have been something around to make noise other than footsteps. He could even hear his own heartbeat, and that was irritating and scary as well. There was a weird feeling in that city which was never felt before. There was something missing in that city, but no one knew what it was. If that missing thing were present, they would have ignored it because it was not that important to them. There was an unusual feeling of insecurity there. What was even more concerning was that in addition to no people, there was no garbage or even dust on the streets. It was not possible that an abandoned city had no garbage or dust on the streets. Qianye was getting more concerned and scared by every passing second. Then something even more dangerous started happening. The fog above the ground started getting heavier, and it dropped to the street level. Visibility had dropped to almost zero, and the troops just stood there not knowing what to do. Qianye thought that was an enemy trap, because the odds were all against them right then. He started to look around him for any signs of danger. Suddenly, when he looked towards an alley, he saw a couple of people coming towards him. He looked at them for a few seconds before quickly pulling out his rifle and shooting at them. They were zombies infected by the Blood Tribe, and were coming at him. After shooting them, zombies started to appear from all sides. Qianye and his squad got ambushed by zombies from all 4 sides, and even the rooftops. They started shooting at them with their automatic rifles, but it was just not enough. The zombies were very fast and they kept rushing towards the squad. Qianye was constantly shooting at them, and his face was filled with sweat and fear. When the veterans of Qianye's squad saw him fighting, they quickly jumped in and told him to stay behind them since it was their job to protect him at all costs. At that time, Team A03 had also encountered zombies and blood tribe slaves and had entered battle mode. Team B09 was ambushed on their way to the meeting point, and so they had entered battle mode as well. Team A07 was not at the meeting point on the designated time, and so they entered battle mode too. Whereas Qianye's team B07 was in battle mode too, because they had to protect Qianye, the rookie. At that point, there was chaos all around, and every team was fighting off the zombies as hard as they could. Team B07 had one main goal at that time, and it was to protect Qianye at all costs. He was instructed to only use 2 force bullets if it was necessary, because he had to conserve his force for emergency purposes. All of them were fighting off the zombies, while Qianye was in the center holding on to his life. They appreciated him for still being alive and told him that the mission had become way harder than before, and they had to evacuate Qianye from that place. One of the veterans called the airship for backup and informed them that Qianye had to be evacuated immediately. He requested a lifeboat as an airdrop so that Qianye could reach the drop location and they could pick him up from there. Suddenly, in the middle of all that chaos, a strange aura started lingering in the streets. It had a great dark presence, and when Qianye felt it, he froze right there from fear. It was from a powerhouse-like dark tribe warrior, and there was more than one of it. When one of the veterans saw Qianye down on his knees and not moving, he shouted at him to get up as quickly as possible because they were still being attacked by zombies. Qianye was told to activate his force shield to protect himself from the attacks, but it seemed like he was frozen there, and there was no response from him. Just when a zombie was about to jump on him and hurt him, he suddenly activated the force shield, and the zombie was blown far away. Qianye was still alive, but he was not in his best condition. Nevertheless, he started shooting at the zombies to protect himself from the attacks. After eliminating the zombies around him, he got up and started walking towards the veteran to get cover. He was told to use his knife from that point onwards because his force had already been used up. While they were fighting off the enemies, an announcement played in their headsets. It informed them that all that scene was a trap from the Dark Tribe, and if it went on like that, they could not win. So the announcement instructed them to evacuate that area immediately and call off the mission. Their only goal was to save their own lives at that moment. They could not even contact the headquarters due to the destruction going on everywhere. They all had one hope, and that was the airships coming for rescue. But within seconds, all their hope died down when the 2 airships were destroyed by the Dark Tribe too. Some types of rockets were fired at them, and they both caught fire mid-air and fell down on top of the buildings. There was a swarm of enemies approaching them from all sides, and it seemed like it was the end for the Red Scorpions. However, a veteran thought that if the airships had fallen, at least one lifeboat should have fallen down too before the airships were destroyed. So, he shouted at Qianye to quickly go and find the lifeboat himself, because everyone else was fighting off the zombies. Qianye quickly started moving through the zombies by killing them with his big sword, but one of the zombies caught hold of his head and jumped on him. Just when he thought he was going to die right there, a fellow veteran came to rescue and shot the zombie with his last bullet. Qianye's face was all red from blood due to the gunshot, but he was okay and thanked the veteran for saving his life. Then the veteran told him to go and find the lifeboat while he covered him from the back. Qianye was confused because it was like a death wish for the veteran. He would die if he stayed there covering his back. But the veteran said some wise words to him and was ready to lay his life for Qianye. He told him that protecting a rookie was his biggest task in the Red Scorpions, and so he would do that whatever it took. Before leaving, he also told Qianye to find the mastermind of the Dark Tribe and avenge all of the fallen military soldiers, including him. After walking through all the broken buildings and rocks, Qianye finally reached the location where the airship had fallen. He started looking around for traces of the lifeboat but could not find it anywhere. He looked everywhere, even under rocks and rubble, but there was no avail. There was not a single survivor from the crash of the airship, and there were no traces of the lifeboat. While searching in that area, Qianye suddenly heard a big explosion behind him. It was the veteran who saved Qianye's life and covered his back while he went to look for the lifeboats. The veteran used his special ability called the Strike of King Soldier, and the explosion was due to that. He punched the zombies with so much force that the whole area was lit up like an explosion, and all the zombies near him burned to death. But that was of no use because within seconds, a whole new army of zombies ambushed him again. He tried to use his force shield to protect himself, but that was broken very quickly by the huge number of zombies attacking him from all sides. The veteran was glad that Qianye had fled the scene, because if not, they both would have died right there. Then he did something very unexpected. He pulled out his grenade and released the safety pin from his mouth. But then, instead of throwing it at the zombies, he held the grenade tight in his hands while the horde of zombies jumped on him from everywhere. There was a huge ball of zombies on top of him within moments, and it looked like 100 zombies were turned into the shape of a ball. Then suddenly there was a big explosion and all the zombies around him got killed instantly. It was the grenade in his hands, and it went off, and due to the explosion from the grenade, the zombies burned to death. On the other hand, Chianye had found the lifeboat and was sitting in it looking at the explosion from far away. His eyes filled with tears when he saw that the veteran gave up his life to save him. After that, he started seeing explosions all around him. He soon figured out that all the explosions were from grenades and that the veterans were giving up their lives to save him. Many veterans blowed up themselves so that the zombies could not reach Chianye and he could escape easily. They had indeed accomplished their biggest and most important task, which was to save a rookie with their own lives if needed. They had attained true success as a Red Scorpion veteran, and they wanted Chianye to avenge their deaths and end the Dark Tribe once and for all. Chianye was crying right then when the lifeboat launch countdown started. Within 3 seconds, the lifeboat launched into the air and Chianye successfully escaped from that terrible war in place. While up in the air, he started having memories of all the people who had helped him in the Red Scorpions. He had vivid memories of Batian, the airship captain, Colonel Wei, and all the other veterans who had laid their lives for him. Chianye was in utter sorrow because he thought that he was the reason all the other veterans died there. If he was not on the mission, they would have saved their own lives and carried out the mission. Things had settled down on the battlefield after an hour. There was darkness everywhere and the fire from the explosions had gone off. Then, Lin Shitong came to the scene to check out all the damage that had been done. He was not sure why the Dark Tribe laid out such a big trap for them, and he wanted to find out their true intentions. While he was walking through the rubble, he suddenly stumbled upon a name tag. It was Lin Chianye's name tag and was found under the rocks. Shitong picked it up, and the first thought that came to his mind was that Chianye had died in the battle. His facial expressions changed, and he instructed his team to go back right then. There was no other thing for them to do there. Chianye was in a dream where he was sucking blood from a human being. It was like he was a blood slave zombie sucking out every drop of blood from the human to kill it and feed on its body. Then suddenly he woke up and saw himself stranded in the woods in the middle of nowhere. He was lying near some rocks between trees. He got up and could not believe what he saw in the dream. All he could remember from reality was that he got into the escape pod, and the launch sequence initiated, which got him out of the terrible battlefield. When he put his hand on his neck, he had some blood. There was a small wound on his neck, and it looked like he had been bitten by the zombies in the end, before escaping the battlefield. Chianye panicked right there, but when he got up and started walking, he saw a dead deer a few steps away from the place where he was lying. He saw the deer and thought that a Blood Tribe member would have killed it. He looked all around him but felt no presence of a Blood Tribe warrior near that area. Then, he looked closely at the wound on the deer's neck. It was of human teeth. He figured out that the deer had died because of a human bite because there were no Dark Tribe fangs on the body. It died because of excessive blood loss after being bitten. Chianye reached out to pick his knife from his pocket in hopes of examining the deer more carefully. But just when he touched his knife, the magic mithril reacted to his skin and he felt a strong burning sensation. He quickly dropped the knife and panicked again. Since he had a wound on his body and the marks on the deer's skin were human, and the magic mithril reacted to him, he started to think that he had become a blood slave. Chianye fell to the ground with tears in his eyes, and he thought that it was the end for him. Chianye remembered what he was told about the blood slaves by his seniors. Once a blood slave bit a human being, the human would lose their mind within a couple of days. The minimum time was 10 minutes, and the maximum time was 2 days. After 2 days, the human would completely turn into a blood slave. He would have animal instincts and would only react to fresh human or animal meat, and would obey the higher members of the blood tribe. Soldiers were the most vulnerable to being infected by the blood slaves, since they were the ones fighting them on the battlefield. So the soldiers had been given advice on that matter. If they were bitten by one, they were advised to end themselves before completely turning into a blood slave. This way they could save many of their own people and not be an advantage to the Dark Tribe. Chianye picked up his knife and decided to end his life so that he would not be a liability for the others. All he had on his mind was that he had failed his father Lin Shitong and his senior Colonel Wei and could not take revenge for his fallen comrades. He thought of him as a complete failure. Right when he was about to cut himself, he stopped. He suddenly thought about him still being sane. Since he had drained the blood from the deer, he had gained his sanity back. But that was not possible for a blood slave. They could not get their minds back whatever they did because the process was irreversible. Chianye got up and stood on his feet. He looked up to the sky and thought in his mind that there was still hope for him. He had not turned insane at that time, so that meant that he had hopes of surviving. He quickly built a fire for himself because it was getting dark, and then heated a cup of water on that fire. After drinking the warm water, he took out the flares from his military backpack and fired one because he needed to get rescued to find out what was actually happening with him. The Blackstone mine was the most important mine for the Imperial Army because it produced Blackstone, which was a high-energy mineral. The whole Imperial Army used that mineral as the fundamental power source for all their projects. However, the mining of that mineral was very difficult and a tough job. Many people had been fixed for that job since their birth. They were required to work in blackstone mines all day and provide power for the elite class in the Imperial Army. They did this task every day until death, and sometimes their future generations were required to keep doing that job as well. Qianye was really worried when he shot the flare because he only had no feasible choice. If they caught him, they would either execute him immediately or put him to work on the blackstone mines like a slave till he died. He did not want either of that to happen and wanted to live a normal life again. After some time, a couple of military troops showed up to his location because of the flare. He recognized them from their uniform. They were the troops of the local defense army and just happened to see his flare while walking nearby for security reasons. When they came near him, they started to smell his strong sense of blood. They immediately pulled out their guns and pointed them at him because they thought he was a blood tribe member. Qianye tried to put out his thirst for blood, but it was uncontrollable. So he had no other choice but to run because they would shoot him if he turned out as a blood tribe fighter. They fired a shot which hit his arm, but he successfully fled the area, and after running for a while, he found a peaceful place with trees around him. He sat down under a tree and was pissed at the fact that he could not hold his thirst for blood. That thing would get him killed or made a slave at the Blackstone mine if he was unable to control it. Qianye did not want his life to end like that because he needed to find out the truth of that mission. The person who instructed them on that mission used Lin Shitang's warrant, and that cost them a third of the troops of the Red Scorpion. To avenge his comrades, he needed to find the culprit who destroyed the Red Scorpions by sending them on that one mission. Far away at the Broken Wings Angel headquarters, Wei Potion was still practicing his moves at the training course. He had only one goal on his mind, and that was to beat Lin Qianye in the military competitions in 6 months. He spent all his days training there to make his body more refined and beat Qianye badly. On the other hand, at the jailing Song family mansion, the leader of the Broken Wings Angel, Song Zining, was looking at some papers from the devastating mission of the Red Scorpions. He had a list of all the members who had died in that mission, and there was Lin Qianye's name on that list on the top. He passed a devious smile before a guest came to meet him, and so he left his room and went with that guest. There was a whole search mission at the place where Qianye had rested after landing in the lifeboat. Many members of the army were tasked with finding out what actually happened. There were helicopters searching for him, and the place where he rested was under heavy investigation. After careful examination of the fire and other remains, they reported that Qianye rested there for more than 2 days before fleeing the area. By that investigation, they decided that Qianye was not a blood slave, but a newborn blood tribe. It was officially reported that Qianye was a newborn blood tribe, and things got even more complicated when they made that discovery. After reporting that, the search mission leader decided to call off the mission. The investigators insisted he should keep searching because a newborn blood tribe case was a once-in-a-lifetime chance for them to study the blood tribe. But he did not agree with them. Since the Imperial Army was a huge group with many small groups acting under it, there would be problems for them later on. The regular armies used to recruit local army troops to act as bait in wars, and that proved that the relationship between different army groups was not any good. So to avoid any political trouble, they decided to stop the search mission and just report what they found out about him. Meanwhile, back at the Red Scorpion headquarters, Beiqian was looking quite worried. He was waiting for a new member who was going to join the Red Scorpions. The Red Scorpions had suffered a huge loss, and so they were recruiting new members to fill in the gap. Soon, the new member came and met with Ba Tian. She was named Nanggong Xiaoniao, and was a short-heighted but fairly built girl. They shook hands, and Ba Tian welcomed her to the Red Scorpions as a new rookie. Far away near buildings of a huge city, Qianye was walking with something on his mind. He stood near a cliff, and a strange person came up to him and asked him what he was doing there. The place where Qianye was standing was the border between the Eternal Night and the Dawn Continent. The person who approached Qianye was actually one of the guards of the border, and he was level 3 in terms of force power. Out of the blue, Qianye gave that man a bag full of money and asked him for a ticket to the Eternal Night Continent. The man was shocked upon hearing that because he had never seen someone spend that much money to illegally enter the Eternal Night Continent. The guard asked Qianye if he had done anything crazy, or had killed someone and was fleeing the authorities. He did not answer and just told the guard that he wanted to meet Huiyu. Huiyu was the guard's boss, and he had instructed him to be polite with all the people who wished to enter the Eternal Night Continent. So the guard opened the huge gate and escorted Qianye to the ship which would take him to the Eternal Night Continent. The Eternal Night Continent was actually under the Upper Dawn Continent, and so naturally it had really less light. There was a very short daytime in the Eternal Night Continent, and it lacked basic resources for survival. Only a maniac would wish to go there by his own will. But there he was, sitting on the ship, alone, going back to the place where he grew up. Qianye was finally going back to his actual home. Inside the Eternal Night continent, two workers were collecting trash. It was 3 in the afternoon and it was already getting dark. The old worker had been working there collecting trash for most of his life, and he was still amazed that it would be dark by 3. He could only wish to live up in the Dawn continent, but that was only for the elite people. Small workers like them had no place there, and their life would just end like that with no hope. While they were chatting, they suddenly saw the gates of the Eternal Night continent closing up. They saw a bald military officer up by the gates who was closing the door. They asked him why, but he did not reply. Suddenly, an announcement was heard on the speakers. It said that there would be a blood moon soon, and it was not safe to be in the Eternal Night continent at that time, so they were closing the gates earlier. Everyone was requested to immediately come back and not risk their lives. When the workers heard that, they started running towards the gates because they also feared their lives and would not put them on stake for a few coins. In the Eternal Night continent, most of the people lived off by scavenging for food and resources. They were the people of the upper continent who were not valued there, and they could not make a living at that place, so they came down to the Eternal Night continent and lived off by themselves. But down there, they could never live peacefully, and were at danger all the time, especially when the blood moon came. During the blood moon, the Dark Tribe used to become way more powerful than the normal days, and they used to attack humans more often. So if a person wanted to stay alive, the best option was to evacuate the Eternal Night continent and go to the other side of the gates. That way they would be safe from the restless Dark Tribe creatures. Back inside the gates, the two workers were having drinks in a bar. The older guy feared that if the gates and shops closed early every day like that, he would not have enough money to drink soon. Meanwhile, the other guy was not worried at all and was enjoying his drink when suddenly a huge guy came through the door with a fully armored suit on. He was Scar Feng, and the two workers seemed to be familiar with him already since they knew his name. Feng came to the bar counter and smashed his hand on it, and then asked for the special booze from the bar, which was very strong. He had heard about the bar from a lot of people, and the bar's strong booze was very famous. The bar cashier asked him for an Imperial silver coin because the strong booze was their most expensive one. Feng had no Imperial silver coins on him, but he wanted to try their famous booze badly, so he had another plan. He offered the cashier his rifle as a payment method and put it down on the table. When the cashier saw that, he told Feng that the rifle would be considered as half an Imperial silver coin. Feng became pissed when he heard that, and threatened the cashier to not pay the other half. But Feng's face expression changed into pure fear when the cashier told him that if he did not pay the other half, he would blow off his head using his own rifle.
Don't forget to like and comment for the next part. Join our Discord for the name of the book and subscribe for more videos from us.